Good evening. We will call our January 12th meeting of the Planning Commission to order.
Good evening, commission members. I'll call the roll. Shane Banks.
Present.
Mariah Bishop.
Present.
Ralph Carson.
Present.
Philip Jefferson.
Here.
Jehan Hodges.
Present.
Ben Mills.
Here.
Michael Voiland.
Here.
That's 7 members present.
Thank you so much. Your agenda has been placed on your desk. Are there any updates we need to make at the moment?
No updates to the agenda besides the recommended action or the requested action for GZ 25001 and ZTA 24001.
Okay, thank you, and that is on our desk. Do we have a motion to approve our agenda as written?
I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, thank you. Have a second?
Do we have an invocation?
Yes.
Yeah, apparently I've been here for a while.
That's okay.
Let's do
It has been since October.
That's what we get for missing our December meeting. Our invocation, Mr. Voiland. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, I think.
Yes.
In December, I shared with you an article about the decline of people moving within the United States. It was based upon the census data of 2024. It noted that the percentage of people changing their residences was down to just 11% nationwide, the lowest in almost 80 years of U.S. Census data collection. It was described as the most substantive shift in U.S. demographics in over a century. The point was made that historically, people who have moved tend to feel positive about the economic and social opportunities in their new place. And despite less moving around by Americans as a whole, North Carolina was noted as a leading in-migration location, becoming the new home to many moving, motivated Americans from other states. And as commission members of a town in an attractive North Carolina metro area, we've seen what that has brought. That is proposals large and small, most every month, for residential, commercial, or public infrastructure development. So it was quite timely that a fairly new nonprofit, nonpartisan organization called Carolina Forward recently released a report entitled North Carolina's Next Chapter, Harnessing Growth and Shared Prosperity. In it, the group said that the state is growing almost too fast, which has created both enormous opportunity and mounting pressure on housing, transportation, schools, and health care. It notes that Wake County grew by more than 20,000 people just last year, the equivalent of adding a whole new town to the county map. In response to this, the organization urged greater consideration of higher density development, such as duplexes, townhomes, small accessory dwelling units, as well as more attention being paid to affordable and workforce housing. I'm probably telling you things you already know, as Garner has clearly been on the beachhead of that in-migration wave. But I thought it might be of interest to you and of value to you to hear that other government, media, and private entities are speaking in one voice about the challenges of planning for a fast-growing suburban area like ours.
Thank you so much for that information. I think it's very helpful for us to keep in mind as we go into our meeting this evening. Now, do we have a motion to approve our agenda as written?
I will make the motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you so much. We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second.
There's a motion on the floor to adopt the agenda. I'll call the vote. Shane Banks.
Aye.
Mariah Bishop.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Aye.
Philip Jefferson.
Aye.
Jehan Hodges.
Aye.
Ben Mills.
Aye.
Michael Voiland.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes. The agenda is adopted.
Thank you so much. Our October 13th meeting minutes are what we are reviewing currently. We did not have a December meeting
Or November meeting.
or November meeting. Is there anything in our meeting minutes that need to be revised or updated? If there are none, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve our meeting minutes from October 13th?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. We have a motion and a second.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the minutes, and I will call the vote. Shane Banks.
Aye.
Mariah Bishop.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Aye.
Philip Jefferson,
Aye.
Jihan Hodges,
Aye.
Ben Mills,
Aye.
Michael Boylan.
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
Thank you so much. We have approved our meeting minutes from October. We have a very robust agenda this evening, so let's do our best to stay on topic and move through our items. We will do our very best if we are moving too long to have a break at some point as needed. Currently, old new business, GZ 25001, 8401 Old Stage Road.
Probably would help if I'm at the beginning of my presentation. There we go. Hey, good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Julian Griffey, Senior Planner here for the Town of Garner. I'm here to present my first case of the evening. It's going to be a general rezoning, GZ 25001. Please note that this is a general rezoning. That being said, there is no attached site plan nor site-specific conditions within this particular petition. I do want to preface, and I'll get into it towards the tail end of my presentation, that it is intended that this will be modified into a Tier 1 conditional rezoning before it goes before Town Council at their February meeting, assuming it clears tonight's hurdle. The petition at hand, again, GZ 25001. The applicant is Lynn and Joseph Gregorio. The owner of the property is listed as Madison Womble LLC. They are the owners of that LLC. And they are petitioning to rezone from R40W, which is a R40 residential watershed district within Wake County, to the R4 zoning district here within the town of Garner. Please note that this rezoning is aligned with an annexation petition. That petition is ANX 25016. Going into the current zoning, as I had stated previously, it is currently a residential 40 R40W watershed Wake County zoning district. Typically within this zoning district, you'll find single-family dwellings detached in that particular area of the county. The current use is a single-family dwelling. In the surrounding area, abutting the parcel as well as the general vicinity, you will find surrounding land uses within the R4, R2, and RA zoning districts. There is going to be a good amount of single-family dwellings specifically detached within the greater vicinity of the subject site. It is not located within an activity center, although there is a community activity center located just to the southwest at the intersection of Old Stage Road and 1010 Road. Again, the applicant is petitioning to annex into the town and is requesting an R4 zoning district. That zoning district provides for a less permitted uses than within the existing R40W district. Within this particular district, you can find through by right or through a special use permit 13 uses as compared to about 30 to 40 uses within the existing R40W zoning that exists now. The R4 zoning district within the town of Garner does typically host single-family dwellings at a moderate density. Again, within the general vicinity of this, Eagle Ridge across the right-of-way of Old Stage Road is an R4 zoning district, so similar in nature and compatibility with that. A neighborhood meeting was conducted. This was conducted in August of 2025. Staff did identify 110 properties within the general vicinity, the required notification radius as prescribed within our Unified Development Ordinance. No persons, from my understanding, were in attendance as prescribed in the submitted documents with that neighborhood meeting that was located at Southeast Regional Library. This is where it gets interesting. So as it is in unincorporated Wake County, we find parcels within our extraterritorial jurisdiction, or ETJ, and those usually have a land character type or a development intensity type prescribed to them. This is a unique case where this particular parcel does not have a land character type or a development intensity type. So what's been presented here, what was presented at the public hearing as well, is that although it does not have an assigned land character type or a development intensity as identified within our Garner Forward Comprehensive Plan, across the street, directly across that right-of-way, is going to be the typology and the intensity that we're going to essentially compare it to. Similar nature, R4, R2 zoning districts, single-family detached. Again, it's just directly across the right-of-way, so we did tie it and analyzed it and reflected it against that land character type and that development intensity. So across the street is going to be the land character type that is known as neighborhoods, classified as neighborhoods. It's also directly across the street from what is a level 2 areas to strengthen. So again, modifying and fostering that neighborhood character, that single family character, is what's envisioned for this particular site. So when we were able to analyze it and reflect it against our comprehensive plan for consistency, there were 3 of 15 growth framework criteria were evaluated, all of which were in strong support. The details of that can be found within the consistency report, which is embedded within your staff report. Again, it was essentially reflected against the typology and the intensity that is across that right-of-way. In general, the proposed zoning district is consistent with the abutting land uses and the land uses within the greater vicinity. And as I had just stated previously, that entire consistency review is embedded within your staff report. It did get presented before Town Council at the public hearing on November 18th, 2025. There were a couple of topics covered, some questions fielded to the staff as well as the applicant. Those were related to utilities, the rezoning and annexation petition, ownership of the parcel, the future development and the intent for the development of this parcel, as well as a recommendation to modify to a conditional zoning petition. Again, as it was stated previously and what was talked about at that public hearing is that this is a general rezoning. It is 0.74 acres. They're asking to be rezoned to an R4 zoning district. There are currently 13 uses allowed permissible by right within that zoning district. However, Town Council wanted to err on the side of caution about requesting the applicant to modify to a conditional zoning district. In the event that it is modified, and from my understanding, it will be modified, the applicant happened to submit a document earlier today of her intention to modify the document. It just was submitted after the deadline to publish the agenda. So that document was not embedded in your report. However, given that document as well as the subsequent document we are expecting, this will be modified to a Tier 1 conditional rezoning for what that's worth. So that being said, staff has drafted a consistency statement. As I had mentioned previously, it was found to be consistent when reflected against the growth framework and the consistency of the land uses around. So this consistency statement is what staff has drafted in the event that the Planning Commission does find it consistent and compatible as staff has found. Of course, Planning Commission does have 4 options. The one highlighted is the one that staff has suggested and recommended, as was with that consistency statement on the aforementioned slide. So a draft motion has been produced by staff in the event that a Planning Commission member wants to make said motion, that it would be consistent with the land use and the consistencies against the adopted plans. Pertaining to next steps, adoption of a draft motion referencing plan consistency with the recommendation to approve or deny would be made by this board. And then ultimately, it would go to Town Council once it has passed this board with their recommendation on approving or denying to the next meeting, suspecting it being in the middle of February. Again, lastly, is just to harp on what was stated previously. Currently, it is a general rezoning. However, it is very much expected to transfer and modify into a conditional Tier 1 rezoning. The applicant is here, Joseph and Lynn Gregorio. If there's any questions for them, as well as staff, I can answer the questions to my best ability.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions for staff at the moment? Mr. Worland?
Yeah. I'm not sure I've ever experienced this kind of proposal before. And I'm just trying to make sure I understand. The applicant is here, the owner is here, they are named, but the town is the submitter. Now, is that because it has to do with moving it from Wake County zoning to town zoning, or is it because the applicant has requested an annexation? Trying to understand.
Yes, no, you're fine. So the town is not the submitter unless it's mistakenly written within a particular report, which is possible. I see Thomas circling something over there.
I'm just going by the wording in the document. General rezoning request submitted by town of Garner.
Yes, so that would be an incorrect statement. It is not submitted by the town. It is in fact submitted by the LLC by way of the applicant who is the owner of that LLC. So that will be corrected.
Got it.
Thank you, Ms. Quillen, for that.
Just have a question. Is there any right-of-way impacts with this rezoning as it's along Old Stage Road? Is there any expansions or anything that might impact this property or vice versa?
To my knowledge, not that I'm aware of. That's not to say that there could be something obviously down the line, but I'm unaware of any NCDOT infrastructure projects along this particular stretch of Old Stage.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else for questions for staff before we move on to the applicant? None? Okay. Then we are happy to hear from the applicant unless we need any other questions. Please, as you come forward, please state your name and your address and your affiliation for our record.
Hey, we're Lynn and Joseph Gregorio, owners of Madison Womble LLC, and we're here to answer any questions.
I have one question.
Yes.
I know you're connecting to the city water. Did you contact Raleigh about connecting the sewer, or is that an option?
We'll be doing a septic. We have a permit in place already.
Okay.
And if I can chime in here just really quick.
Yep.
So this particular area is located within the Swift Creek Land Management Plan. Parcels within that particular area and the zoning classification that they are assigned, they are not allowed to connect to sewer. So they have a separate assignment from a different plan that supersedes all of our plans or ordinances here at the town. And then from my understanding, the intention is once it's annexed into the town of Garner, then they could tap into the utility service being water.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, seeing none, then thank you so much. So
Thank you.
this is an opportunity for anyone to speak in favor or against. Seeing none, we have an opportunity to discuss this at planning commission. Unless there's any more discussion, is there a motion on the floor for us to make some decisions or have formal conversation?
I'll move. I move that the planning commission accept the consistency stated and drafted herein as our own written recommendation regarding the consistency of the request for the town's adopted land use plans and recommend approval of case number GZ 25001 to the town council.
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any other discussion before we go to a vote? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second.
Yep, there's a motion on the floor to find the request consistent and recommend approval, and I'll call the vote. Shane Banks.
Aye.
Mariah Bishop.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
All right,
Philip Jefferson.
Aye.
Jihan Hodges.
Aye.
Ben Mills.
Aye.
Michael Voyland.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our applicants. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Next on our agenda, CZMP 25002, Quality Oil.
And now for my second case of the night. Again, Julian Griffey, senior planner with the town of Garner, here to present the second case of the evening, which this is a tier two, excuse me, not tier one, tier two rezoning case. This is going to be CZMP 002, also known as Quality Oil, located off of Evol Drive and NC 50, also known as Benson Road. So the applicant submitted is going to be Sarah Van Every with the McAdams Group on behalf of the owners CTW Properties of Garner LLC. As I stated previously, this is a Tier 2 conditional rezoning request, requesting to rezone approximately 5.76 acres from commercial mixed use CMXC conditional and neighborhood mixed use conditional to commercial mixed use CMX C324 conditional for the development of a convenience store, fuel sales, and office and retail. As I had stated previously, the site is generally located at the southeast corner of Benson Road, NC 50, and Evolve Drive. Going into the zoning and context, as I had mentioned previously, the existing zoning is going to be a CMX conditional and an NMX conditional. They're typically found along well-traveled roadways within the corporate limits. The current use is vacant. A list of that ordinance that was adopted for that CMX conditional, NMX conditional is within your staff report. This had gone before a conditional rezoning, so it wanted to provide a historical context of the uses that were prescribed in that. This is also located within the RTO, or the Residential Thoroughfare Overlay District. That particular district that has a bit of a caveat regarding the types of development, the uses, hours of operation, design and architectural standards within that stretch. That is located along the Timber Drive, East Timber Drive roadway. They also have caveats pertaining to visibility, setbacks, street yards, buffers, etc. along that stretch. Regarding the proposal, they are seeking to rezone this 5.76 acre parcel to a CMX conditional. They're looking to construct a convenience store with fuel sales as well as an office and retail component. The full set of conditions is embedded within that staff report. I'll run through the site plan, but just as a preface, we're looking at 2 commercial structures, building 1 hosting that convenience store with the associated fuel canopy being about 4,600 square feet, and then the second building hosting retail and office space at about 8,700 square feet. There are some other conditions associated with this submittal. They're looking at specific guidelines pertaining to site design, architectural standards, the buffering and plantings, as well as the open space and recreation that is proposed on this particular subject site. Again, as I stated, 2 commercial structures with the associated fuel canopy. There's also they're proffering a variety of public spaces. Also within those conditions are architectural standards, as well as standards pertaining to the open space and recreation amenities that will be provided on the site. Breaking down the site plan, it's constructed here just to orient yourselves. The left side of this image is going to be facing northward. So if you do turn it rotate it 45 degrees to the right, north will be as above. There are, again, 2 buildings and the associated fuel canopy, as well as their stormwater control measure, which is proposed to be underground. Going into access, there's a variety of things projected on this particular site pertaining to transportation and access. There, on the eastern portion, is an easement for a potential future greenway. In the northeast corner is going to be a bus stop shelter that's proposed and proffered by the applicant, and there are 3 points of ingress and egress. The first one off of NC 50 on the bottom of the image, that is going to be on right in, right out only from Benson Road. And then full movement is possible off of Evolve Drive, being that northeast ingress, egress, that's full movement towards the bulb or that roundabout. And then there's going to be a right in only access towards the intersection or closer to the intersection of Evolve Drive and NC 50. Going into amenities, again, these are proffer conditions. I had mentioned that greenway easement dedication that the applicant is going to set aside, as well as that bus stop shelter towards that roundabout and towards that towards that multifamily development to the northeast. There's a public seating area located between the 2 structures proposed, as well as a dog park for public use. There are conditions related to landscaping and buffering, being street yards facing Evolve Drive, NC 50, Benson Road, of varying widths being 15 feet as well as 25 feet. And then the buffering requirements as required against that multifamily / R4 zoning districts on the east and southern portion of the site. Those vary for 35 to 55 feet in width. Pertaining to stormwater and utilities, I mentioned it earlier, they are proposing a underground stormwater control measure. There are also water and sewer lines that traverse the site on the northern and western portions of the site. There were found to be no significant environmental or cultural features on this particular site. And then getting into the traffic impact analysis, or the TIA. The TIA was submitted by McAdams in July of 2025. It was expected to generate 4,787 trips. I do want to preface within that TIA, and I believe that they have a person more with better expertise in traffic than myself. But one caveat of that TIA, it did state that Pass-by trips make up the majority of those 4,800 trips, being 76% in the morning being pass-by. From my understanding of transportation, someone just happens to be going along the same route, they happen to stop, and then they continue on their way. So those aren't new trips generated. However, that being said, AM peak hours projected 142 in, 139 out, PM being 180 in, 181 out. That full TIA is embedded within the staff report for your review, and it did suggest improvements to the northbound right turn lane into the site, as well as improvements along Evolve Drive. Regarding meetings, there were 2 neighborhood meetings taking place in June and October of last year. Staff did identify 464 properties and occupants within the general radius as required for our notifications by our UDO. There were also developer meetings where members of the development team, as well as members from town council, met and conversed about the project itself and the proposal. All of that information is embedded within your staff report. Going into the framework, this particular subject site is located within a neighborhood activity center. It is also wedged in between another regional retail center to the northeast along Timber Drive, and then a second neighborhood center to the west at the intersection of Avosboro and Timber Drive. It is located within a retail center's area character typology, as well as it's classified as a level 3 of being a site that is an area to enhance. Regarding consistency, it was reflected against the comprehensive plan. It was found that 16 of these various criteria were able to be reflected against this proposal, and all were found strongly consistent. And then going into the land use and community character consistency, there were 22 applicable criteria. This one ranged a little bit more of strong support and modest support, and there were a couple of instances with modest and strong non-support. And there was a bonus point with, I believe, providing green space, I want to say, but that's also embedded within your staff report as well. Combining those two, rating this overall, it was found to be generally consistent. There's certainly strong measures for support. And as I had mentioned previously, there's a couple of instances where staff found it modest or strong non-support. Again, that full consistency is within the staff report, and I can certainly answer questions at the tail end of this presentation. This did go before Town Council at their public hearing for December 16th of last year. Questions fielded to staff as well as the applicant pertain to traffic in the roadway, the consistency report, as I mentioned previously, as well as site layout and design. I do want to state that there was a good amount of council that have voiced their appreciation of the project. From my understanding, the proposal did evolve over time following the neighborhood meetings as well as the meetings with council previously. That being said, staff has drafted this consistency statement. This is reflected off of that document I passed over towards the beginning of the meeting, just a little wordsmithing there. So again, if Planning Commission happens to concur with staff, this is the consistency statement for that. And as any case presented before you, Planning Commission does have the 4 options as prescribed here, being the highlighted option is the one that planning staff does recommend. A draft motion has been provided and crafted by planning staff. Again, so if a Planning Commission member happens to find this consistent, they could state this as the recommended approval statement. Again, next steps, we would see how this would fall at Planning Commission if you provide a recommendation for approving or denying. Subsequently would go to the next Town Council meeting expected in mid-February for reasonableness and decision to approve or deny. The applicant is here. They have prepared a presentation. At any point, staff or the applicant team can answer questions if there are some.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Griffey. Are there any questions for staff at the moment? Mr. Boylan?
Yeah. Just under zoning and context in the paperwork we received, there's the sentence, scratching my head. Benson Road, NC 50 is a 2-lane minor arterial roadway.
Yes, so that was the whole segment. And when I went into NCDOT's classifications, that's what it's prescribed as, is a minor 2-lane, 4-lane minor arterial.
Really?
That's the classification that I had researched and found.
Second question regarding traffic flow. At one of the meetings, a question was asked whether there would be a traffic signal at Evolve and Benson. And the answer was, if DOD permits, more or less. Was this question about a traffic signal not resolved with the Bojangle work, which we waited years for that to actually break ground? And I thought that with the Bojangle application, they had reached some accommodation on whether there would be a signal or not.
So I can speak to researching and reading this particular TIA as well as the review report that was submitted by NCDOT. That being said, from my understanding with TIAs, anytime it's projected that a development is going to generate over 100 trips, it does have to go through a TIA process. That TIA is submitted to NCDOT. That being said, the review report and the correspondence that I have been tagged onto from NCDOT is that the McAdams report actually suggested a stoplight going there. However, NCDOT advised and is not going to allow at this point in time a signal at that intersection of Evolve Drive and Benson Road. The correspondence that I did review and the words that were exchanged was that it would cause so much backup and such backlog at the intersection of Timber Drive and Benson Road. And that's the reasoning for not at this point in time having a stoplight be placed at Evolve Drive and Benson Road.
I use that roadway, Benson Road, going north every morning, as does my wife. And we feel the pain for the people trying to get out of the Evolve development, trying to get out onto Benson Road, whether they're going north or south. I am very concerned about how this alleviates any of that. If there's something else not done, if it's not a signal, what else is going to be done? I don't see how the traffic improvements are going to improve any of that, particularly for the people who live in the Evolve development. I realize that's opinion, but I see it daily, and I just don't know how it's going to work.
Mr. Boylan, if I may, when the applicant team speaks, I think their traffic engineer will speak a little more about the DOT recommendation and what they did or did not allow.
Okay.
And so I think it's probably more fair for him to answer that for us, but.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Boland. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, would the town be maintaining the proposed public dog park?
That potentially would be a question for the applicant. I don't think that we would be required to, but that's certainly something that probably can be more so discussed with the applicant, yeah.
Any other questions for staff? If none, then we will move to our applicant. As you come forward, please state your name and your address and your affiliation so that we can verify that on our record.
Oh, yes, sorry. Just give me 1 second. Let me pull up theirs.
Just for clarification, DOT's classification of minor arterial versus principal arterial is pretty expansive. You'd have to be like a US 1 or an interstate to be considered a principal arterial. State highways, things that are more regional in focus as opposed to statewide, are just all lumped into that category. Just remember that there's also major and minor collectors below that.
Okay.
Good evening. Michael Birch with Longleaf Law Partners here on behalf of the applicant, Quality Oil Company. With me this evening is also Wes Benfer with Quality Oil Company, Sarah Van Every, and Nate Boquin with McAdams. So I want to thank first staff, Julian, Thomas, Aaron, and Jeff for working with us throughout the process and to getting us to this point. So before turning it over, I do want to turn it over to Quality Oil to introduce themselves, but also want to put this site in a little context as you're thinking about it. Sorry, one second here. This parcel is the last remaining piece of the Williams family property, which was over 50 acres to start. 25 acres sold to Duke University, 22 acres for the apartment community to the east, about 4.5 acres to the Bojangles to the north. They also dedicated a significant amount of right-of-way for the Timber Drive widening project at no cost to the town. The Williams family has kind of held this site out, waited patiently for the right use, and even more so the right partner to bring forward a proposal that would complement the surrounding area and contribute to what has been and is being developed in this area to serve both those surrounding uses as well as the folks traveling up and down Benson Road. So Quality Oil Company was chosen as the right partner because of their company history and their track record of bringing compatible, complementary projects, particularly desired here at this key location. So I'm going to ask Wes Benfer to come forward to introduce himself and Quality Oil Company, and then I'll get back up here momentarily.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Wes Benfer on behalf of Quality Oil Company out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We're very grateful to be here in front of you tonight to present this proposal. A little history about Quality Oil Company. It was established in 1929, so they're approaching their 100-year anniversary. Over that time, they've grown significantly. We operate reliable tank lines, which many people may recognize traveling up and down I-40. We run convenience stores under the brand Quality Mart and Quality Plus, provide propane and heating oil services, and have expanded into hotels and other real estate ventures. 95% of the assets of Quality Oil are located here in North Carolina, and we value being a long-standing local provider. I also want to mention our nearby project, the Oberlin Hotel in the Village District beside NC State. It's been a wonderful project. It's going to be a 153-room Hilton Curio collection that we've been working on for the past 5 years, and it's about to open here in 2026. And actually, that's a picture of it down there. So just wanted to throw that out there as like quality development, something as an example. That brings us to this project. Quality Oil has served Wake County for many years, and when we identified this parcel, we saw a meaningful opportunity to provide needed services to this part of town. As many of you know, fuel options are limited in this immediate area, and with all the growth happening between the Duke facility, Bojangles, and the VA down the corridor, we believe that this location is well positioned to support residents, employees, and visitors who will soon be traveling here more frequently. About 2 years ago, Carl Williams and Brenda Compton and I began discussing this property as a potential home for the new Quality Mart prototype. We haven't built too many C-stores in the past 10 years, decade or so, but we're excited about this new design. You'll see it upcoming here in the slides, but it's modern, it's attractive, and it's really tailored to today's customers. As Michael mentioned before, this 5-acre site is the last piece of the Williams family, more or less legacy piece. It was home of the Williams family business, the Wimpy Williams General Store, which served the community for decades and even sold fuel. Carl's boyhood home was also on this property, and this parcel is the last piece. He's been very selective about finding the right partner for this, and he chose us, and we're very thankful for it. We've met with the planning staff, the mayor, council members, and we've listened closely to the feedback we received, and the plan you'll see tonight reflects that input and has evolved significantly. We're proud of the outcome and believe it'll be a strong, positive addition to the community. With that, I'll turn it back over to Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to first address why we are here, touch on a few consistency items, and then turn it over to Sarah Van Every and Nate to cover kind of how the site plan evolved, the details of that, and then address some of the traffic questions. So why we are here. You can see in that kind of zoning map up on the screen, this property is split zoned, NMX and CMX, and it's subject to zoning conditions from 17 years ago when this area and the needs of this area were very different. So a primary purpose of going through this process is to apply one single zoning district, one set of uniform conditions, and then also subject the entire property to a site plan for a cohesive development. So we have chosen to apply the CMX district, given that the uses that we are pursuing meet the intent of that district, which is to provide a wide range of commercial uses serving not just the surrounding neighborhood, community, but again, also those traveling through town. As staff noted, with regard to consistency, this request is entirely consistent with the town's major policy maps, the growth framework maps. All of them call for this area, this property to be retail, commercial uses that enhance the area. Again, we are within a neighborhood activity center adjacent to a regional employment center, and the uses that we are proposing will serve all of those uses. I think this consistency is driven by, again, the limited scope of allowable uses that we are proposing, our conditions regarding design, layout, and compatibility, and the good vehicular access and connectivity, both vehicular and pedestrian, around the site. So at this time, I'll ask Sarah Van Every to come forward to touch on the details of the site plan, and she'll be followed by Nate Boquin. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, Planning Commission. Thank you for having us here. Thank you, staff, for the presentation. And Julian, Aaron, Jeff, really appreciate all of the help and input you guys have given us throughout this. Thomas as well, thank you. And Julian, appreciate you picking this up. So thank you, Michael. I'm going to pick up here. These were your land use slides. All right, so I'm going to...
Ms. Van Every, make sure we...
Yes.
we
I need to do my address, don't I?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Sarah Van Every, 621 Hillsborough Street, Raleigh, 27603. Sorry about that.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank you.
So you've heard a lot about when this plan first came to staff and then went to the neighbors, etc. So I want to show you guys what we first brought to the town, and that's what's on the screen. And this is the same thing that we took to the neighborhood meeting. So when we first met with Quality Oil and looked at the site, what they needed, how it fit right with the required buffers, etc., setbacks. So essentially what you're looking at is a code compliant plan. It meets the boxes, it checks them all off, but it's kind of basic. So we met with council members, we went to the neighborhood meeting, we heard from the residents. We had, I think, about 15 to 20, 10, okay, on the first one. They gave a lot of great input though. So we heard feedback from council, from the neighbors, and what we heard, and you all mentioned some of them in regards to access and how the site works right now, right? There's the apartments. You mentioned the folks who are wanting to get out on Evolve Drive. So we did have members from that community come to the neighborhood meeting, and we really got a lot of great feedback. So we heard everything. We heard, and I'll go over what we heard. So in regards to transportation, what we heard, and I confirmed this with Wake County Public School System, is the school children currently wait in sort of in that roundabout area, if you will, in this bulb out. The bus picks them up here, and reason being is this is private property. It would be difficult for a bus to get down in there and get back out if they needed to. And some of you may be wondering, well, why don't they just turn around right here? There's a lot of space. Well, what we learned from the neighbors and what we heard is that commercial vehicles are parking here, and sometimes hanging out here. They're not parking, right? There's no business here for them yet to be at. So because commercial parking is not necessarily a use that every town wants, and there's not a lot of area for that, so this is what's happening, sort of an unintended consequence, if you will. Well, what that means is that was giving the parents a lot of concern, right? So I wanted to make sure that the bus wasn't supposed to be coming here, and it wasn't that it couldn't. So I found out that the bus stop is here. This is where it's supposed to be. It's a safe place. So we want to make sure that we kept that in place. And we've also worked with town staff, and kudos to staff for helping us work with enforcement and making sure that the vehicles aren't parking here when they're not supposed to. So that was one thing that we heard. And I'm going to show you what we did with all the things that we heard. So that was definitely the major thing, right? When we hear safety, when we hear children, that was a concern. So what we did is we took everything we heard, and we gave the whole site a glow up. So what you see here, and this is not a public bus shelter, this is something that would be privately maintained, and it is not a school bus or transit bus stop. It is meant for the residents to have a place, if they need to come out and wait for that bus. They can see it, they're safe. While they're waiting for the bus, they can use the Where's My Bus app while they're waiting, and then they know when the bus is coming and they can get there safely. So speaking of safely, we made sure there'll be a high-vis crosswalk that can go in now. You'll hear more about traffic and the light in following, but this also gets us all of the safety measures needed in place. So we've also provided pedestrian access, right? The sidewalk that'll be required along there. But we've made sure that's in place. You also will notice there's a lot of pedestrian access throughout the site, and that is for the purpose of providing that connectivity. We've what we heard, and let me also explain, because this is something you probably also don't see a lot with a fueling station, I certainly haven't, was a dog park. Not only is there a private space for school bus and children, there's now a dog park, privately maintained, by the way. So, because we heard when we brought this, right, some of the other feedback that we heard was, well, what about community activity? What about public realm? Where is that in this sort of basic plan? So what we did is we took the storm water and we moved it underground, right? So that's also at an expense of the developer, of the client. So that's gone underground, and now that opened up that space that was over here so we could shift, and now what we've done is we've created a centralized sort of public seating area. And it is in our zoning conditions, their size requirements, et cetera. But this is designed to create that public realm, to have that outdoor plaza. And then the other thing that we did is, and I've mentioned that we have a dog park here. So this also creates that community area if someone's coming and they need their fueling, they need to get out, stretch. Not only is there a place for them to enjoy, but now there's a place for their pooches to enjoy too, and to get out and stretch all four legs. And also, I'll go to this slide here. So back over in here-ish is some town property. So, oops, wrong way. Why I say that, so when the Greenway connection. So what we've done here is provided a Greenway connection, an easement, so that if the town comes back and wants to connect these properties out, then this will be something they won't have to come to Quality Oil and look for an easement. There'll already be a dedicated easement for that connection should the town ever want to do that. So we've been working with staff, the neighbors, we heard the feedback, and these are what we proffered in response to that, to try to set this site up not only for now, but also in the future. So, and I've listed out some of the other zoning conditions that we proffered in response. I think I've hit most of them. Some of them also, let me hit the building materials and design. We've also limited building height because of if this site were in the RTO, there are building height limitations. So what we also tried to do was to make sure that that same predictability would be here for that building height transition, and limited all building heights to no more than, I think, 35 or 40 feet. But what we've done is we've put that in a zoning condition. So we've taken, with the RTO coming out, we've made sure that those predictability is needed for that transition is still in the zoning conditions, so that you all will have that predictability. So essentially what we've done is we've taken the zoning conditions, and they've been carefully curated to support what we heard from the neighbors, from staff, and from the elected officials. We moved the stormwater underground at the owner's expense in order to open up the site and create that public realm, and to be able to provide that desired programming found in the Dream Book, also known as Garner Forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nate to talk a little bit about traffic. And there is the complete listing of all the zoning conditions. They are also embedded in your report.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Nate Boquin, traffic engineering lead with McAdams, and address is 621 Hillsborough Street in Raleigh. So I'll get into your questions here in just a moment, but first wanted to dive into the trip generation a little bit more. As staff mentioned, a little bit unique situation when we're looking at gas stations or C-stores such as this. So for all trip generation, for all TIAs, we utilize what's called the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. This spells out for whatever type of land use we're looking at, what sort of parameters we need to be looking at, how to calculate the trips for that site. Within that trip generation manual, it spells out also how to break those trips down into the types of trips we're looking at. There are two main types of trips that we're looking at within those studies. Kind of your more standard, typical trips that you're looking at, or what we refer to as primary trips. So those are the trips that kind of start at point A, travel to point B, with either point A or point B being the development that we're looking at. When we're looking at land use that is a lot more, has a convenience factor to it, we also introduce what is called pass-by trips. It's very common for essentially all retail uses, but when we're looking at C-stores and gas stations, it is a significant piece of the trip generation. So that essentially is a reduction to the trips, if you will. We're still looking at providing those trips entering and exiting the site, but they are already on that roadway traveling by the site. And so the upstream and downstream impacts because of those trips are significantly reduced. So when we're looking at the 76% AM and 75% PM, those percentages are spelled out in that trip generation manual. That is what NCDOT and the Institute of Transportation Engineers tells us to use for these specific land uses. And that's just wanted to talk through a little bit of kind of where those numbers came from. And as a result of those pass-by trips, when we're looking at our transportation impacts along the corridor, those impacts are significantly less than they would be if we were looking at kind of a more standard, if you will, land use here that did not have as large of a pass-by reduction. Oftentimes then we might be looking at some upstream or downstream impacts, but here we're really focused on looking at the driveways, which is where the majority of our impacts would be because of that large reduction. So as staff mentioned, we have some improvements at the site driveways, constructing right turn lanes. As part of that also, it's setting up our frontage along Benson Road for the ultimate cross section, which is 4-lane median divided. So again, looking at providing some widening there beyond just what the TIA spells out, but just setting up that corridor for that future cross section. Regarding the traffic signal, that was actually a recommendation within our TIA for our project to construct that traffic signal. It was something that we were very optimistic that NCDOT would allow, but based on their review of the study, they had concerns introducing a new traffic signal along that Benson Road corridor. Essentially, they were concerned about stopping folks on Benson Road that a traffic signal would introduce versus the free flow condition that they have now with just the stop sign exiting Evolve. I also had previously prepared the traffic impact analysis for the Bojangles project. They did not have the requirement for a traffic signal. I believe most of the at least recent conversations regarding the Bojangles and NCDOT coordination was surrounding their right-in, right-out driveway on Benson Road. NCDOT had concerns about the stem length that they were able to provide, and so there's a lot of coordination to be able to satisfy NCDOT with the stem lengths. So that was what that recent conversations and concerns that were being fleshed out with that project were. So happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to the team to wrap up the presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate. Did want to just highlight one of his comments, maybe in response to an earlier question about the ultimate cross-section for Benson Road is not a 2-lane road, but a 4-lane cross-section with 2 lanes in each direction. And this project is dedicating the right-of-way and constructing those improvements along the frontage of this property. And also, in terms of kind of alleviation and kind of trip distribution, ultimately, that I think slide on the right there shows the future connectivity in this area. So being able to get out to Timber Drive from this site through the Bojangles site and then through the Duke site, ultimately out to Timber Drive. So there is that cross access that will be in place ultimately that will take the pressure off that Benson Road Evolve intersection potentially. So we appreciate you listening to our presentation. Our entire team is here if the board has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Oh, question?
Yes.
Yes, regarding this last slide you have up. So you're saying the slide on the right is kind of a futuristic view of where folks from this site may be able to get out to Timber?
Yes. So the Bojangles site plan provides cross-access across their site as well as the Duke site to the north.
So this would be driving literally behind the Bojangles?
Right to the side of it, yes.
Okay. To get to this new thing, which will snake around where Duke Medical would be, correct?
Yes.
And it also uses a little leg of old New Rand, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
That's correct, because there's no longer that connectivity there. So it just, that leg comes out to Benson only.
Okay. I'm not sure. I have questions about the neighborhood meetings. I'm not sure who to ask. Is it the applicant or staff?
I think you can ask the question, then staff or the applicant can answer.
The first meeting, June 4th, 10 neighbors showed up. The second meeting, October 23, 3 neighbors showed up. I see many questions here at the second meeting. At least in our packet, we don't have any questions were asked at the first meeting. Is there any reason for that?
I'm not sure why they're not in your packet. We provided call it the Q&A from that meeting.
My packet has no questions asked at the first meeting. All the questions in my packet show a lot of them, good ones, but they were all second meeting.
See if we can identify those just a moment.
Yeah.
Mr. Vaughn, if you'll just bear with me, I'm going to pull up our internal software of all the documents that were submitted into the application and ensure that that was not missed, to, again, ensure that that was submitted as part of the application package.
While Julian's doing that, I will ask Sarah to come up. We can certainly identify the questions and topics that were covered.
That's fine.
Thank you. So, yeah, let me, for visual purposes as well, right? So this is what we went to that neighborhood meeting with in June. And a lot of the questions that, one of the questions I get at almost all neighborhood meetings, somebody gets a letter, they want to know if their property is being rezoned, and we let them know they're just a neighbor to it, right? So that's usually always a question. Traffic is always another question. Will there be a light?
I understand, and,
Okay.
and I know you're trying to answer questions.
These are the legit, yeah. And then it was about a lot of what we talked about was they asked us why the vehicles are parking in that bowl. And they asked us what could be done about that. And then I think there was a question about what would happen to the trees, and then the buffer to the east to that, or excuse me, rather to the south.
And I understand what you're trying to do, and I give you credit for that. My question, I guess, was really more towards staff.
Understand.
Where are the questions from the first meeting? I just didn't see them. I thought maybe I had overlooked them. I thought maybe they were combined into the questions from the second meeting. I got confused. Not your fault.
Unless other staff happens to find something else. We do have our SmartGov portal. That's where all the application documents are submitted. I did download and open the neighborhood meeting packet. It is labeled First Neighborhood Meeting, and I do not see questions associated or embedded within that particular document.
So it's not just me with my packet. Do you others on the commission have questions from the first meeting?
No.
No, okay. Not just me.
Yeah, I don't see them either. I thought they were combined in the others. While we review that, are there any other questions? And we'll come back to that for applicant if we find any.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mills?
The conceptual drawing of the quality oil building, building 1, is that the intended, close to intended design that will be built? So is that what is being proposed? And like, I know it's conceptual, but it's just elevations, but is that?
Yes, so that is the new building prototype that they're going with and that they're bringing here. Yes, and there are architectural, there are zoning conditions related to architectural conditions, so that both buildings would have consistency.
Question on the TIA, was the traffic count taking into account the Duke Medical Office building? Because you're running percentages. So with that additional traffic as drive-by traffic, was that taken into account?
So at the time that we initially scoped the TIA, there was not a TIA available from the Duke Health property. We did include other adjacent developments. I know we included the Bojangles and also the. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. The New Rand Medical Office Complex was included. I'm sorry. It had a different name within the TI, but yes, that was included.
Okay. I'd like to make some comments on the zoning conditions. I commend the applicant for the dog park addition, but on the zoning conditions, it notes 3,500 square feet. On the plan, it's 7,000 square feet. Can you confirm as part of the zoning conditions that it is going to be plus or minus 7,000 square feet under zoning condition number 2?
So typically what we do is we try to err on the side of caution on the minimum sizes so that should we get in further into site plan when we go 3D, that if something doesn't fit, that we're still meeting a minimum requirement that more than exceeds what the standard dog park size is, which is typically 1,500 square feet. So this becomes, going off memory. So reason being is, right, we know that as things evolve, there'll be some back and forth, so we wanted to make sure that there is a minimum.
Well, you're off by 100%. So it's either 3,500 or it's 7,000. I mean, you've got all that green space, I guess, to the north of it. I'd just like to clarify that what you're showing on one page is what you intend to build as a minimum, not the lesser amount on your zoning conditions. I mean, you're saying this is our lovely conceptual plan, but then you're cutting it in half.
We are providing a minimum standard that will be met regardless, and expect to achieve that and then some in site plan. So it's not a matter of cutting it, it's a matter of making sure that there is a predictability regardless, because with any zoning that comes forward, there's always the option that what if it's not us? What if it's somebody else that comes in later and wants to do something different? So that's typically where the edges, but that's certainly something we will look at and talk to the client about.
I think consistency between the two would help. I want to commend the applicant on the public greenway easement. I want to commend them on the covered shelter, the outdoor plaza, and the pedestrian seating. I like the fact that your main entrance exit between building 1 and building 2 is offset from Atchison slightly, so you don't have a bit of congestion. I like the lane widening. I like the school bus stop shelter, future greenway. I have some heartburn over, well, I'll split this in two. One, I think the dumpster enclosure should be straight in that drive aisle between building 1 and building 2. I applaud you for building a public seating area. I don't want to sit next to a garbage dumpster. And I don't know if somebody just thought that putting seating for eating next to the garbage dumpster was a good idea. I think it probably needs to be relocated in line with that drive aisle. I wouldn't want to sit next to a garbage dumpster to eat. I think it's a great addition to have that seating area. I don't like that layout. Another question, in this dog park of unknown size, is there going to be water station available there as well for the pets?
It's a great question. We will work on that, on the water station.
Okay.
I don't know, so we'll.
Okay.
Great question.
Two more questions. One, can you explain what is Plan North here of the dumpster area? It looks like a blue canopy area, but then there's something else beside that that's a different color.
So so for dog parks that you have to have, for them to be ADA accessible, there has to be one area where you can sort of go in. It's like a 2-gate system. Mm-hmm. And so that's what it's to represent. And then the blue line is the greenway easement, just a potential.
No, what's the blue canopy area? Is that another seating area? Or what is it?
I believe it might be a shade structure for that. I'll have to go back and confirm.
Because it looks like it's the same color as the concrete sidewalk, so it looks like it's a big concrete pad and something's on that pad, so I wasn't sure if that was additional seating area. aside from the seating area next to the dumpster, item number 19, building 1 and building 2 have a lot of green space around it. I like that. I'm concerned that you're going to be advertising tobacco and CBD and vapor products in the windows because you won't see it from the roadway. And I think everybody has an idea of what is probably available in there. And I don't know that that can be modified, or if we have a right to even ask that be modified. I'd like to see that reduced to 0. So if we can do something on item number 2 on the square footage, possibly do something on 19 and relocate the dumpster / seating area combo.
The advertising zoning condition is also from another convenience store zoning condition, and it was recommended that we look to that and add certain conditions from that. So I think that was to address a concern that was perhaps a concern for the use anywhere in Garner. And so our adding that was to meet that and to make sure that there was some limitation versus there being none. But we hear the request for 0, and we'll take that back to the client.
The reason I ask is, again, we kind of know what's available in there. When you go to a gas station, a lot of these tobacco CBD places, vapor, have flashing signs, and you've got this beautiful conceptual drawing of the building, and then you're going to have signs that might take away from that. And where you've got the bus stop, you've got children around, just don't think it needs to be advertised. And I'll leave it with that. But I do want to hear back on my other comments after some other commissioners may offer their comments as well.
Any other questions, Ralph?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, Mrs. Hodges.
Just out of more curiosity, does that, the complex behind it, do they have a dog park, or did they request this dog park because they don't have one?
I believe that they do have one. This was came out of a request in our meetings with staff and council members as to what could you do there? What else could you put there? They don't have one? Okay. Sorry, I must have looked at a different one. They don't have one.
Okay. So I assume that would provide, I guess, a convenience to the residents of that area as well, be open to them. And as far as the different, I guess, in and out, and the one that's going on to timber behind Duke, what is the projected timeline for when that would be completed, and then, I guess, starting there, since we're not sure about this project yet?
Well, so from our neighborhood, and I did find my neighborhood meeting notes, and we do have a written up copy as well. But it was believed that would be spring of 26.
Okay.
I don't, now that we're here, 26, I'm not sure that that's true.
But in the very closer to near future, so that should be completed even before this project would be.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that would be available.
Correct.
When if this project comes to fruition, that would already be there. Okay.
Yeah, both the Duke site and then the Bojangles, right, so that you would have that, essentially that internal connection on the backside of here, which would be, right, where that sort of right here, and it would come right to there and start going that way. Okay. So this would be the end of that back road issue. I can pull it back to that one. So right, that was the one I just had up on the other screen, and then this is Bojangles.
And then only, I think my last question is turning, so understand it's just a right in and out of the property, seeing people do stupid things. Is the median to turn to left into the property, is it still an open median or is it blocked, like a barricaded median? I can't remember.
So this is the only full access up here.
Okay.
This is right in, right out.
Yeah. So what I'm asking is, I guess in the median on Benson Road is that still open, an open median?
So there will not be a median across.
Okay.
The reason for that is we don't want to restrict the access for Atchison.
Okay.
We will be restricting it with we call it a pork chop. So that kind of large island.
Yeah.
So the idea being restricting it kind of on our site to limit the impacts to the adjacent street.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mills.
Yes, I have a stormwater question / concern. We may need to pull up IMAPs too. So I was looking at the topo from IMAPs earlier today, and it looks like, preconditions to proposed conditions, everything flows southwest where the, SEM is. But then the, elevations get kind of weird after it exits the site. It looks like, it was hard to tell from my maps, but it looks like the low points were where the houses were located. I guess at Creek Line Court. So I didn't know if y'all had a chance to take a look at that or where the water actually flows after leaving the site. I don't want any, I don't want those houses to flood out just because we put this new development in.
Right. So, do you want to talk? Okay.
Hey, good evening. I'm Grant Mandres with McAdams, 621 Hillsborough. I'm the civil engineer on the project.
Okay.
So, yeah, as with any site that we design, the post impacts will be better or equal to what the pre are. So we're not going to create a situation where we're creating flooding situations on the offsite. So as you said, the water does flow to the southwest corner. That's where the SEM will be located. Detention and treatment, and then we'll follow a similar drainage pattern to what's there now. And of course, we'll look at the offsite impacts and make sure that nothing is created that isn't there already. And as is usual, we'll probably create a better situation where that's a lot, it's mitigated and a lot more controlled than it was now.
Okay. Can we pull up IMAPs real fast? Take a look at the topo. When I'm looking at it now, it looks like, we have a culvert going underneath Benson Road, but I'm not sure where it goes after that. And I'm not sure if those properties already have a flooding issue. That's why I'm bringing it up now. Just off the topo, it was very hard to tell. I don't think it was quite accurate. I don't know if they have a stream running between the two houses or what's going on in that condition.
Just big picture while that's being pulled up. What we heard both from, what we heard at the first neighborhood meeting is prior to the apartments being developed, there was a fair amount of just sheet flow stormwater that was impacting some of the homes directly south of there. Once that property was developed and stormwater detained, that greatly improved their situation. At both neighborhood meetings, we heard nothing regarding any stormwater concerns or flooding impacts or concerns from those nearby residents. So I just want to highlight that, and then Graham can speak to how it drains off-site.
Yeah, if we go a little bit further south on the screen to the neighborhood down there, yeah. So we have you can kind of see a blue line stream coming from that culvert. And then if you show the imagery too where the houses are located, that might help too. But it's just kind of hard to tell, where it goes after that. I just don't want to make that condition any worse.
Yeah, so as a design requirement, our condition will absolutely not make it worse. If anything, it'll make it better. Just because of this, there are really stringent requirements around stormwater, as you know, and we are not going to exasperate a situation. We'll work with the town or DEQ to make sure that we're, if there are off-site flooding, things that we can do to mitigate on our site, then we will do that. But yeah, the post versus pre is that's a situation that we have to manage on our own site.
Yep. So, for the 25 year.
Yeah.
Yeah, taking a look at the topo right there, it just looks like the low point sitting on the house is right there. So I'm not sure where it goes after that. So I guess my concern is, I'm either increase the detention for the SCM or show those houses aren't going to be affected by, more of a concentrated exit flow coming out of the underground system. And I guess, I don't really have that information here tonight. And I know everything's preliminary right now. So that's kind of where my concern is at right now.
Yeah, understood. And we'll definitely work with staff and other relevant agencies to make sure that we're following good guidelines there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
I do have a question for staff, I believe. So one of the zoning conditions limits the ability for a tobacco, CBD, or vape shop not to be in the second commercial building. What about the electronic gaming facilities? Will that be prevented in this zoning?
That might take us a second to look through the
Okay.
video and see what's permissible and what's not. I see Jeff making a face, so.
That is a separate use, so unless it's excluded.
Cool. Thank you.
It's not listed in our list of permitted uses. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have a few comments and questions. So I do like the fact that it's walking distance within homes. I like the layout. Do you know if the sidewalk extends further down on Benson Road to those other neighborhoods? It was kind of hard for me to tell.
No, so the sidewalk will kind of stop at the southern end of our property.
Okay, and is there any potential consideration to extend the sidewalk to the other neighborhoods as well so they can walk there?
No, there hasn't been. I know there is some grade in that area. We can take that under consideration, but there's that's a pretty good distance off site, but we'll continue to think about that. So
Okay.
Thanks for that question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help reduce some of the traffic that a lot of people keep complaining about. So, how many stories is the building to? It seems like it's possibly one. Is it just one?
So the maximum height of that building is 40 feet. So I don't believe we've regulated the number of stories. We just regulated the maximum amount of height consistent with the residential thoroughfare overlay district.
Thank you. And then my last comment or in question, I guess, how close is another gas station? I guess one of my concerns is, I guess, the fact that there's, oil and gas near quite a few residential homes, and just the, air pollution, water pollution. Don't want those families to be impacted.
Understood. The closest gas station, I believe, is down at 1010 Road. There's a smaller BP there, and then the other closest is out on Highway 70. There may be a Harris Teeter Fuel that is to the west.
Yes, so out of curiosity, I did look this up myself. There is a marathon towards the south, close to 1010. There's a Lowe's Foods that has limited hours of operation at the intersection of Aversburg and Timber. And then to the north, there's a couple BPs towards NC 50 and 70. And then there's a BJ's over towards White Oak.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Carson.
The other gentleman that just spoke previously, the other gentleman, you were referencing questions that were asked at the first and second meeting, and just following up with Mr. Voiland's question earlier, we don't have any questions from the first meeting, so.
Yeah, I understand they're not in your packet. I have them pulled up here and happy to identify what those are.
I wouldn't mind hearing
Yeah.
just a quick synopsis of what some of those concerns were at the first meeting, since it's not in our package.
And I do want to note, in response to one of your earlier comments about the size of the dog park, right, and the difference between what's shown on the plan and what's shown on the conditions. Did talk with Wes, and from a condition standpoint, we can increase that to 5,000 square feet. Again, understand what's shown on the concept plan. We've tried to clearly label that as well. That's what's anticipated. But from a minimum square footage standpoint, we're willing to revise that condition and provide a minimum of 5,000.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. So there's a question about the pond remaining that's on the property there, and answer no. We'll be relocating that. Again, at the first neighborhood meeting, we were anticipating an above ground stormwater pond. Of course, we've changed that now to underground. There was, as Sarah mentioned, there was a question about, are we rezoning the west side of Benson to homes? Of course, no, we're not. Question about access, will Evolve be our only access? No, we've got right in, right out off of 50. Question about when Duke is breaking ground, spring 2026 is what we've heard. Question about, will a traffic light be installed at Evolve and Benson? We've addressed that. Question about, will this be a truck stop? No, it will not be a truck stop. Question about hours of operation, which we have addressed in our conditions. Question about how long the rezoning process is. Question about what was attractive to the site. And again, I think Wes addressed that some, but with the amount of existing traffic on Benson Road coming through this area, of course, the complementary use of Bojangles, certainly Duke University and the VA in the area, generating a significant amount of demand in this very close area. Question about phasing, which building will we anticipate being developed first? All right, it's our intent that the Quality Oil Mart would be developed first. And then a question about dealing with the truck parking that was happening at the end of Evolve, and then also asking for an exhibit showing that cross access through Duke, all of which we provided and addressed. And a question about, will the school bus, can we change the school bus drop off currently at Benson Evolve to further back? And we did run that question down with the school system. They're keeping that bus stop there at the intersection.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you increasing the minimum of the dog park. And I don't know if there's any consideration of moving on that condition 19 to 0, but I'll just ask that question again.
Okay. Okay. Here, I've got a copy of it.
It's a low one.
Bear with me for
No, it's okay.
1 moment.
While you're looking that up, can I ask a probably relatively quick question about the operating hours? Is that for both buildings or just for the Quality store?
That is just for the convenience store.
I'm gonna ask a question while this is also being discussed. Can you bring up the image of the proposed 3D view of the building at all? Yeah.
So you're talking about the elevations and the schematic of the building?
Right. So before you answer that question about the signage, because this is our Benson Road frontage, right? So number 14 kind of mentioned minimum ground floor transparency of the elevation facing Benson Road should be no less than 66%. So not that I want you to, I can ask you to change your design, but since that is the front of the building, there still seems to be a lot of potential missing storefront to kind of really view the street and view into the building. Perhaps, thinking about how much that really is to really make that a really strong facade, since this is really facing a really forward and busy street. And all I ask is you just think about that, how that is really placed, especially as we move north-south. Still seems a bit bare to me in detail quality, even the kind of canopy, perhaps. I don't know if, since you do have this outdoor plaza space, is it really more welcoming? The canopy doesn't seem very welcoming for a kind of a space that has outdoor spaces for the public. Maybe it's longer or anyway. Those are some things I want you to think about, because this is a very different situation than most of our convenience store, gas station conditions, because you are adding this public space. And so to be able to really engage that public space as you move back and forth, that becomes an outdoor cover, almost like the porch, if you will, as we think about the character of a new character. So I would just, and I know you have storage and wall area that you have to cover with plant. I understand that. So just kind of think about that. That being said, that will also perhaps align with this question about signage. And we have, guidelines for signage. So I want to just kind of bring that up.
Yeah. And so on the condition 19, where that type of advertising right now is limited to a maximum of 5% of the total window area. Not able to reduce that to 0 at this moment. I think it'll take some more consideration on Quality Oil's part and an understanding their ability to do that, but are not able to commit to reducing that from 5% to 0% at this time. And I will note there was a question of about hours of operation on the other building. I think if you look at our list of permitted uses, we really don't have any that would call for much,
8 hours.
I believe like a drive-through restaurant is not permitted in that building too.
My other question does have to do with the access point behind Bojangles and the Duke property. My question for that actually kind of ties on with Mrs. Hodges' questions about that access point. Is it really a formal access, or is it really the back entrance to the building? And how formal would that be as a drive to access Timber Drive, so that we actually do formally make that another way for residents to get in and out of that access point? And does Duke intend for that to be an access point, or is it just really part of the backside of the parking lot? Because I think that changes how people maneuver through the site. If it's meant to be a space that you move, and that it's not the backside of the restaurant where you have dumpsters and such, and the backside of Duke where you have dumpsters, it's not really the place that you would want to access. But I would, like to, for us to think about that. How is that really? What is the partnership with that? And is it really a space that can be formally used as access? Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Because you brought it up, so I want to make sure that it's not there's a building there and there's a parking lot so you can drive through. But is it really a formal way of accessing Timber Drive?
Right. So from certainly across the Bojangles site, I mean, that is a pretty straight and direct, essentially drive aisle along the eastern boundary of their property. I'm not sure if we are able to pull up the site plan for the Duke property. But again, our understanding is that's kind of established cross access. I don't necessarily know how, call it formal, right? But think about context and maybe like an office park or other kind of multi-tenant area where you do have like connected spaces. But again, I don't want to oversell it or undersell it.
Right, and I know you can't control other properties, but because you brought that up, there's a diagram that shows that. The question kind of comes up like, oh, then there's some type of relationship and partnership that shows that they all are working together to move traffic out to Timber Drive. So maybe that's a conversation that happens as these finish to really find the best way to make that a really, not just the back end of a parking lot that people kind of sideway through, but it really is a secondary or tertiary access for residents in and out formally. Just something to think about. I can't make you can't change someone else's project, but you did show that as a diagram that this is something that you are considering as a way to
and
access.
there is access right through those sites. There is connected access from this site across Bojangles through the Duke site out to Timber. Again, the form that takes, again, I understand across Bojangles, it's kind of a straight shot along their eastern boundary. Once it gets to the Duke property, not as sure about how kind of clearly delineated that is. But there is the ability, again, to utilize that to get out to Timber.
Okay. And I also want to say I appreciate the thinking about how our buses access the Evolve site, that you provide an additional way for buses to access and for people to wait for their children. I really appreciate that. I do appreciate the centralizing of some type of a public plaza for the neighborhood, as this almost functions like a neighborhood center. It creates this other type of neighborhood center that the shopping center across the way doesn't necessarily formally have. And so I do echo Mr. Carson's kind of statement about the location of the dumpster. I don't know, maybe there's another location. Perhaps think about it. So that whole space really could be plaza and outdoor open space. And I'm not sure where else on the site that could happen that's easily accessible, but just things to think about to make that really a formal outdoor space that the public really wants to use. So I appreciate you all wanting the public to access that as a centralizing space, and also the building too, a place for them to sit and have lunch and outside. It's not just a parking lot for a gas station. So you're in this you're upping the thought process of what this could be. And it's just that, we're there, but there's a few little things. Those few little things, but this isn't finalized, right? So I appreciate a lot of things that I do appreciate that. I do still have some concerns about traffic in and out. I don't know what that solution is to be able to allow our residents to be able to turn left and right easily with traffic. I understand that there's, DOT doesn't allow you to have a traffic light. I get that. That makes sense. And I don't know what other traffic calming methods can be a part of the insertion of the turning lanes and changing a material or changing a planting. I don't know what that is that may help to try to reduce and calm traffic as we move through in and out. So just a few things for us to consider as we move through the process. Are there any other questions or comments or statements? Are there any comments from the public, any statements for or against this product that we need to review? Seeing none, do we have any more discussion or a motion for the commission to review for a more formal decision?
I think I would like to add a condition. Maybe we can discuss it about detaining the 50-year 24-hour storm, kind of going above and beyond Garner's current requirements. Just concerns about where it's being daylighted at. When that site, south of there gets developed, it won't be an issue, but currently have a little bit of concerns with the way the structures are located now.
Okay, is that a
Just to clarify, a condition cannot be added by the planning commission. It can be part of your
comments?
Your comment
Okay.
that it be considered in going back to the town council, unless the applicant accepts it.
Yeah, we're not able to accept that at this time, but appreciate that comment and direction. We'll try to evaluate between here and the town council.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion, commission?
I'll make a motion. Make the motion, I move that the planning commission accept the consistency statement drafted herein as our own written recommendation regarding the consistency of the requests with the town's adopted land use plans and recommend approval of case CZ MP 25002 to the town council with the agreed upon change on zoning condition 2 to 5,000 square foot minimum.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any other discussion before we move to vote? There are none.
So there is a motion on the floor to find the proposal consistent and recommend approval with the added condition, or the edited condition by the applicant to provide a 5,000 square foot dog park.
Minimum, yes.
Minimum, yes. And I will call the vote. Shane Banks.
Aye.
Mariah Bishop.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Aye.
Philip Jefferson.
Aye.
Jihan Hodges.
Aye.
Ben Mills.
Aye.
Michael Voiland.
Nay.
That's 6 ayes, 1 nay. The motion passes.
Thank you so much. We have passed this motion. Thank you for your time. Thank you to our applicants.
Mr. Chair.
Would it be possible to?
We sure will.
Okay,
It's
great.
8:44 and we have been here for a while, so let's please take a 10-minute break.
Resume at 8:55.
Thank you so much. Back into our session. Thank you all so much. Hope that was helpful.
Good evening. Welcome back. Before I start, I do want to let you know that there is a printed copy of the conditions for rock quarry assemblage at your stations. It was in the digital files if you were looking at them today, but they were not in your paper delivery on Friday afternoon. That is my mistake. So please follow along when we get to conditions. But let's dive in. So this is CZ 24006, rock quarry assemblage. This is a Tier 1 conditional rezoning request submitted by Daniel Smoot of Madison Holding LLC. Daniel, David Smoot, and Jeffrey Smirko are our applicants today. This site is off Rock Quarry Road and East Garner Road. As a reminder, this is a Tier 1. There is not a site-specific master plan to analyze. Currently, the site is owned rural agricultural, which is mostly agricultural, silvicultural, and large lot residential in nature. You may also find some utility structures, some other compatible uses. These areas are generally found outside corporate limits where water and sewer are not available. There are 29 permitted uses in the RA district by right or special use permit, and that is found in Article 6 of the UDO. There are 2 zoning overlay districts that apply to this site. The southern portion of the site does lie within the Commercial Highway Overlay District. That is along the East Garner Road corridor. The Limited Access Highway Overlay District covers a majority of the site that goes along both the 40 and 540 corridors. This site is bounded by the future NC 540. Both of those overlay districts have additional standards for development, design, and landscaping. The Limited Access Highway Overlay District also limits access. This site will be accessed by the Rock Quarry Road interchange. And later tonight, you'll hear about proposed text amendment changes regarding the LHO for subdivision. Currently, the site is vacant. It's generally bounded by Rock Quarry Road, East Garner Road, and the future 540. A small portion of the site does lie south of East Garner Road, north of the railroad corridor. There is existing residential development in the area, including Edge of Auburn, which is nearing build-out. Future approved residential development includes Gatsby Station, which is directly south of Edge of Auburn, and Burnett Farms, which is on the other side of 540 at Auburn, Knightdale, and Rock Quarry Road. The nearest non-residential development is the Garner Business Park, which is on Highway 70. The site does fall, majority of it, within a community activity center, which is a mixed-use activity center centered east of Rock Quarry Road, directly across from Edge of Auburn. You'll see that brown circle headquarter, kind of right in the middle of the site. Of course, this side of Garner is experiencing rapid change. Most of that development is residential in nature. There are some mixed uses proposed, and this interchange with 540 is going to provide robust highway access to the site. Just a little about AADT for Rock Quarry Road. 6586 trips from a 2024 study, and the average annual daily trips for East Garner Road in the area is 11,616 trips, and that study is from last year. The applicant is proposing CMX conditional zoning C323. Again, you have that set of conditions at your desk. You'll see, and we'll explain a little bit later, how the site is broken down, but I do want to highlight the changes that came as a result of public hearing. So since public hearing, the applicant has removed self-storage, mini-storage, and vehicle sales, rental, service, and repair uses from Pod A. I will show you here on this map. Pod A is that red color, that orange color directly across from Edge of Auburn. It's the largest portion of the site. Pod B is that darker blue in the middle, and the light blue is Pod C. So as we talk about pods later on, you can keep that in mind. The pod exhibit should be in your staff report as well. The applicant added upper story residential as a permitted use in Pod C. They added a restriction of townhomes within 400 feet of Rock Quarry Road, so you will not have townhomes within the first 400 feet along Rock Quarry. They made changes to self-storage facility buildings with size, scale, appearance. They made updates to their consistent lighting condition. They added a number of playground elements proposed as part of the playground in Pod B. They did remove building height language that was already consistent with North Carolina Building Code, and they added townhomes to their condition relating to architectural standards. The TIA we did not print for you. It was over 400 pages. Again, that document was in the files shared with you. The applicant does have their traffic engineer here if you have questions about that later. They did a TIA in 2025, August. The scope of the TIA included up to 1,028 multifamily units, 52,000 square foot of ground floor retail, a 125-room hotel, 90,000 square feet of general office space, and an additional 24,000 square feet of retail. Since the scoping of this occurred, the applicant was unable to secure rights to a parcel that was going to include the hotel and the general office space. So for staff review, for our purposes, the scope of the TIA is conservative. It overscopes what is proposed as part of the properties that are under control as part of this rezoning. So I just kind of want to give that as a preface. There will be 5 new access points included as part of this. Access 1 will be across from a realigned Old Balcom Road. Access 2 would be directly across with Edge of Auburn Boulevard. And access 3 would be across Garden Vine Trail. All of those access points are designed to tie into existing access points on the other side of Rock Quarry Road. 2 other accesses would be on the East Garner Road side. And you could see those in the scenario A and scenario B. Signalization of the lights depends on which scenario DOT will allow. The TIA found an additional 12,451 new one-way average trips generated, and you can see the peak AM and PM hours on the screen. There were 247 properties and occupants within the notification radius for the neighborhood meeting. As a Tier 1, they only have 1 neighborhood meeting. That meeting was held May 29th of 2024. There were 9 people in attendance. You can find the full neighborhood meeting information at the end of the report. Again, staff was only able to use the Garner Forward Plan in our analysis for consistency as a Tier 1. As I mentioned, the different pods of the site. The site is large. There's a split character typology and split development intensity levels. So we found it was best to evaluate for growth framework separately. So you'll see I've named North and South. North includes Pod A and B. South includes Pod C. So they are evaluated differently here. In the northern portion, we found 13 criteria with a considerable finding of strong support. And then in the southern portion, we were able to evaluate 12 criteria. You'll also see there was strong support. 75% of those were strong support. There is 1 strong non-support, which is the non-residential building type. The applicant added an additional building typology and they got an extra strong support, but that strong non-support still remained. For land use community character, we were able to evaluate 17 criteria. There's a mix of strong and modest support. There were differing levels of support for the theme 1, an emphasis on the public realm. And other high scores were given as it was not reclassifying a mixed-use activity center. So with the exception of the 1 strong non-supporting criteria and an otherwise strong level of consistency, staff does find an overall finding of consistency at this time. You have the full detail in your staff report. I wanted to summarize all the comments and concerns from council at the public hearing that was held December 16th of this year. There were concerns over the, quote, lowest build-out of the site without assurances of more. There were concerns of the minimum acreage dedicated to mixed use or non-residential uses. There was a question over the scale and intensity of the development proposed. There was a comment over using Garner's limited available land to its best use. There were concerns over self-storage use and vehicle service repair use located in Pod A. You'll see that was changed as a direct result of that change from public hearing and our conditions. There was an appreciation for the applicant for bringing water and sewer infrastructure to this part of Garner. There were concerns over potential holes in the conditions, comments over conditions matching with the conceptual vision. There was appreciation given for the open spaces and public places, as well as meeting with the applicant and the applicant meeting with council for direct feedback and discussion. We were specifically asked to give you guys a full summary of the comments and concerns from council from that public hearing. And we were requested to conduct a cursory comparison of a lower and higher end build out of the project based on the written conditions. There was one public comment from a trustee of the Mount Moriah Baptist Church, which is right next to the site. And the church and the team is very supportive of this development because it's bringing much needed water and sewer infrastructure to their church. The motion was made by Councilmember Vance to close public hearing and was seconded by Mr. Matthews. That motion passed 5-0. All right. This is where staff is a little less equipped to give analysis, but I'm going to do my best here. We were requested by council to give a little bit of a summary on how the site could be built out. Now, remember, again, we're looking at a tier 1. We have written conditions. We have permitted use tables. We don't have master plan. We don't have placement of things on site. So we can't commit necessarily to particular things on a map. But when we looked at what we consider a low-end build-out, for the uses permitted for Pod A, they are proposing 10 acres of land along Rock Quarry Road, which would be non-residential. A lower tax generating use, such as a church, convenience store, a restaurant with drive-in, commercial parking lots, minor utilities. Some of those uses could fulfill that non-residential requirement. Additionally, the remainder of Pod A could be filled with garden apartments, which would have a little less tax benefit, tax value than other residential types. Pod B could be residential only, could be just garden style apartments, townhomes. You could also have some standalone uses that are also less tax generating. Emergency services, community center, church. If there are residential developments built in Pod B, you will see a playground. Yes, you will see open space, and you will see athletic fields and common greens, but those would only be built if residential development occurs. Pod C could be built with standalone non-residential uses mentioned in the other pods and certain civic and institutional uses. So that is kind of where we're equipped to give a very low level analysis of that, but it is something for us, you, and the applicant to think about. In your staff report, there is a draft consistency statement where staff has found this overall consistent with the Garner adopted land use plans. You have 4 options as usual for your motions tonight. Staff analysis has indicated that you could find it consistent and recommend approval. All 4 of those options with motions are in your staff report. The draft motion to recommend approval is listed on your screen here. So tonight, our next steps for you would be to adopt a draft motion referencing your plan consistency with a recommendation to approve or deny the request, and then send it to town council for their findings of reasonableness and decision to approve or deny. So At that point, my presentation is through. Do you have any questions for staff right now before we move on to the applicant team?
Looks like we do not.
Sure. Well, applicant does have a presentation here. I'll introduce them. This is Daniel Smoot. So let me get that pulled up
Thank you
for
so much. Please state your name and your affiliation. and your
Absolutely.
address.
Good evening. I'm Daniel Smoot with Madison Holding, 409 Ramblewood Drive, Raleigh. Thank you, Thomas, for your staff report and finding of consistency. Good evening, Chair Jefferson and Planning Commission members. We are here to speak to you directly, though we do have our traffic engineer with us here tonight to answer any specific questions you may have. My brother and business partner, David, and I are local developers, born and raised in Wake County. We are invested in helping to make Garner the best place to live, work, and play. For over 2 years, we have been working with the local landowners of this assemblage, our neighbors, staff, council, and our design team to refine the presentation you are seeing this evening. We are grateful for the positive support we have received from all stakeholders, but in particular from our neighbors. As people see the construction of I-540 well underway, they know that change is coming, and they are eager to see what other changes are in store. This effort fulfills the vision outlined in the Garner Ford Comprehensive Plan. As you know well, that plan was also years in the making. After many iterations, rounds of review, and collaboration between planners and community members. Simply put, the Garner Ford plan for this area, next to the future interchange with I-540, envisions a vibrant, mixed-use development, and our rezoning fulfills that plan. In addition to a comprehensive list of conditions, we divided the site into pods in order to provide a proper distribution of uses across the site. Pod A, the closest to the interchange, has the most intense mix of uses. That steps down to Pod B and then again to Pod C, closest to the railroad. Notably, we have restricted vice businesses, including vape and CBD shops. Our neighbors really appreciate that. At the forefront of our conditions is the ironclad commitment to reserve a minimum of 10 acres for non-residential, meaning commercial, or mixed uses in Pod A, next to Rock Quarry Road, and Pod C, next to East Garner Road. People don't just want to live in a bedroom community where they have to get in their car to do anything. We recognize the quality of life that is created by having a mixed-use development and the long-term economic vitality that brings to Garner. We have prepared conceptual exhibits to help visualize the written conditions of our Tier 1 rezoning. People ask, so what is it going to look like? And here are some possibilities of how these written conditions could come into being on the site. Our first design takes into account the natural features of the site to create our green space plan. Here it is turned sideways from true north so that we can see everything. We have over 27 acres of green space commitments. 1/3 of the total site is green space. Here we see the potential build-out layout of the site. We have multiple architectural proffers. At the top of that list is no vinyl siding. We don't want this to be better. We want it to be the best. We want it to be an amenity-rich development, again, with 10 acres committed to commercial and mixed uses. We want to talk some more about the green space commitments we are making. The Garner Ford Comp Plan contains detailed descriptions and meanings for open space areas, and our proffers use these meanings. This community will have playgrounds, athletic fields, community gardens, pocket parks, a public plaza, and a public square. It will have multi-use paths, public art, greenways, native species landscaping, green stormwater infrastructure, and a common green. These are all call-outs from the conceptual drawings we showed before. It will have sun decks and dog parks and swimming pools, and where needed, stormwater ponds will have good-looking decorative fencing. The open spaces we are committing to will be privately owned and maintained, but open to all. The public will be able to use them. This is a smart way for Garner to add spaces that can be used by everyone without incurring the cost of ownership and maintenance by the town. We want to highlight, by way of example, a few of the conditions. Our conditions are ironclad commitments. We use the language shall in our conditions. For instance, we are committing to a public art installation. Garner was recently recognized statewide for its public art, and we would like to continue in that effort. It could be something similar to the Hidden Figures mural seen here. We are committing to a 40,000 square foot public plaza. This would be in the mixed use area next to Rock Quarry. Think outdoor dining experiences and community event space. We are committing to a 20,000 square foot public square. This would also be in the mixed use area next to Rock Quarry Road. But rather than the hardscape found in the 40,000 square foot public plaza, this half acre will be a grassy lawn and would also be used for as a community event space. We are committing to 40,000 square feet of open space specifically to create athletic fields. This is enough space for multiple fields. My 7-year-old son plays soccer and flag football at the Salvation Army, and their fields are this size. We are committing to at least one playground in Pod B. Our children, my brother David and I's children, are expert playground testers. And we spend a lot of time on playgrounds with them, and we want these to be engaging and somewhere children will be eager to play. We also want to talk further about the commercial areas of the site. We want to have mixed uses with ground level commercial, say a coffee shop, with residential or office above. Our public plaza will create a streetscape where people are outside with activated retail. We also could have commercial only uses, say a restaurant or a medical professional office. Think about all the people now living in Edge of Auburn, or how many will be living in Gatsby Station across the street, or down Rock Quarry and Auburn-Nightdale roads. Now they go to White Oak or Clayton when they could easily walk or have a much shorter drive to our site. We also want to speak about the residential uses on this site. In response to Mayor Pro Tem Dellinger's comments promoting high-density, transformative uses, townhomes are restricted within 400 feet of Rock Quarry Road. We will have a mix of apartments and condominiums, both for rent and for sale. There could be upper story residential units with a coffee shop and retail on the ground level. People will be able to walk or bike from where they live to go play at a playground or get a coffee. And there will be full amenities with an emphasis on creating outdoor public spaces that can be enjoyed by everyone. Lastly, I want to mention that this area does not have any access to sewer And the key to unlocking the development potential of this site will be to bring utilities for the benefit of the entire basin. And it's a big job. We have to bore underneath not only a railroad, but also a highway and go nearly a mile. It will be a very expensive off-site improvement. We have the full list of conditions with indicative illustrations ready to go. If you want to examine any in detail, our team is here to answer your questions. We respectfully request you vote to recommend approval to the Town Council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Smoot. Does the commission have questions for our applicant, or do we have questions for staff? Any comments?
Yeah, I'll say I really love this idea. I'm a huge advocate for, building higher density and walkability, and creating community. And it's really good for, health as well, for people to be able to walk. And it's something for people of all ages. You have, the playground, you have potentially like different stores and shops of people in their 20s and 30s. And then even people who don't have cars and seniors. So that's great. I absolutely love it. Yeah, no other comments. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to echo on those comments, the green space, the athletic fields that can be used by everyone. I'm a huge fan of that with kids, playground experts as well. So,
thank you.
Mr. Smoot, thank you very much for your presentation. This is a large prime land tract, and I love all your conceptual ideas. But I'm concerned on this tier 1 approval without a master plan. And I know it's a process, and things are still developing. If it is built like all your conceptual drawings, I think it'll be fantastic. Your green spaces, your parks, your public areas, just everything about it. But I guess I have a question for staff is, if this is rezoned under this application for tier 1, it does not come back to the planning commission when they do have a master plan. That would go directly
Correct.
to council.
If there was anything that required a special use permit, it would not come to you unless they came for a subsequent rezoning. It would not come to you. It would go through site plan review, subdivision review, as far as staff level review. And if there's any special use permit triggers, it would go to council, but not to you.
Okay. Just another question, I guess, for the applicant. Is there a reason why this may not have been broken up into separate little pods on their own as far as a master plan? Instead of just trying to rezone everything and just say, here's a tier 1. And like I said, I all these graphics are great. I just don't know how that translates into.
We had a similar question from Councilmember Vance. What was the decision making, deciding to go tier 1 versus tier 2? When we initially spoke with staff and with the mayor, tier 1 actually is the best choice for this particular property, in that it does not have any utilities going to it. And to bring utilities to it, that is a multi-million-dollar effort. This assemblage of land is a huge expenditure of money. The tier 2 master plan, which we've done before, where you have a very specific site plan, is great for a smaller, very discrete site. If we took that approach, rather than our site, which will take years to build out, if we took that approach and said, well, we want to get one site approved, that one site through a tier 2 master plan wouldn't have enough economic oomph in order to bring all those utilities to that one site. So, in talking with staff about it, we thought tier 1 was the best approach. We wanted to have a robust set of conditions that would say we're making all of these ironclad commitments, and also knowing that staff will go through site plan review for any specific smaller site plans, as well as we'll go through the SUP process for any one of the plan developments that we're thinking of probably will fall under the SUP net, if you will. So we feel like tier 1 was the way to go.
Okay. Well, thank you for that explanation. Like I said, I love the dream. I hope it comes together the way you have described it. So best of luck with that.
Thanks, sir.
And Mr. Carson, if I may, when the applicant first came in, they did propose just one set of permitted uses for the whole site. So there was a back and forth with the applicant and with staff because there were greater questions about what could be there, where, and how it would look like. So as a result of staff feedback, the applicant did come back with this pod exhibit, pod ABC, and they commit to particular uses and spaces within those pods. So it gets you a little closer without being a master plan, at least.
And I do appreciate some of the restrictions that you offered, and some of those suggestions and conditions, and appreciate that as some of the feedback, I guess, from council and staff. So thank you.
It's been a great collaboration.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there a sound wall next to 540 along this site?
To my knowledge, there is not one and not planned to be one.
Okay.
The site is actually lower than 540, so hopefully that will help mitigate some of the sound.
Yeah. I do still have a little bit of concern with residential homes being so close to 540. Is there any way y'all can offer up any residential houses having soundproof or dampening windows, similar to what they have in Mooresville and the airport overlay?
That's good feedback. I think any program that we'll have for properties that are immediately adjacent to the highway would have some of that mitigating construction techniques to it. I would note that single-family detached homes are not a permitted use for our site. And by the very nature of construction of apartments versus single-family detached homes, they will have better sound dampening effects. I think that's why the limited access highway overlay district is there to work in collaboration with DOT to say, this is where the highway is, this is where the noise is, so that residents aren't affected. So the remaining uses of what was planned for this site is what we've proposed.
Yeah, I still think 540 is pretty close for any apartments or townhomes going in. Still concerned. So I guess what you're saying is you wouldn't want to add as official condition of adding upgraded windows or doors, I guess?
Not at this time.
Okay.
But I appreciate the comment, and I think as a market-driven business factor, we're going to want to sell and rent these things, and we're going to use techniques to mitigate that. I think part of that too is the highway does have a buffer setback for where you can actually, how close you can get to it. So I think planners have already thought about that in coming up with where that buffer distance would be for where how close you could get to the highway. So I think your concern is valid, but I think that it's already baked into the plan to mitigate it.
Yeah, some of the stream or the buffers as a result of that are along the 540 side, but without a master plan, we can't talk specific about distances. But
Well, I'm measuring
Noted.
based off what we have here.
Sure.
So
That's a good
it's
point.
going to be within 500 feet, most likely, based off that.
If you see here on this plan, the sort of bubbled tree areas, those are existing streams and stream buffers. They're all subject to the news buffers. You can see the outline of 540. We're already a good distance away from the highway, just from the natural protection of the site, in addition to the buffer.
Okay.
I do have one follow-up question. I guess I saw someone in the community asked about like a Harris Teeter grocery store.
Yeah.
Is there any consideration of potentially adding like even like a small like co-op or like marketplace? I know you can't like decide, but like, is there any like way
That is, that type of retail is a permitted use. So certainly, we listen to the residents of part of going to this meeting is to say, what do you guys want? What would you like to be next door? And taking on board that feedback. Because, they have to travel to get what you're referring to. So this definitely could be a site for it.
I've got one more follow-up question. Based on this diagram, and I appreciate you bringing the infrastructure to this area, what other areas adjacent to this is this infrastructure going to benefit?
So,
depending on which way it flows, I'm just trying to...
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can go back to the iMaps. So where we're putting in, what color do you want to say it is? Peach. The peach outline of the sewer, if you notice, we're actually going to cross 540, underneath 540, and follow a natural drainage way where there are already streams and things like that. There are a number of environmental features I'd add to the cost of constructability of the sewer, but that puts us on the other side of 540. That whole area west of 540, all the way to Auburn-Knightdale Road, north of East Garner Road, would have access to this sewer. And I don't know how many acres it is, but it's all on the future land use map to be high-density residential, similar to this. It would be a tremendously large tax base to open up with this improvement.
Yeah, on the, let me get my directions correct. On the west side of 540 there, south of Auburn, Knightdale, and Rock Quarry, that is designated Tier 4R, or Level 4 intensity, I believe. So it's that mid-range, high-rise intensity development. So you have the potential on that side to have even more consistent high development.
I know that was a lot in our conversations when we were going over our changes for our comprehensive plan, like where highways and our high density exists, those probably have the ability to function along the corridors that are high traffic as opposed to the smaller scale residential. So that's an interesting way to kind of look at that. And I appreciate also the diagram, though I know we can't hold you to that because it's not a site plan review, but we hope that you work really hard to protect that natural existence on the site,
Absolutely.
but also use it as an advantage to provide a way that buffers the existing components from the high traffic, but also this kind of rising of the element. How, what is our max height for along the corridor?
This particular conditional zoning they're proposing a max of 10 stories is written into their proposed conditions. The level 4B mid-rise, what is the height on that, Jeff? That's what the consistency would have been for this.
10.
Up to 10. So,
Now, granted, the district itself will have certain allowances. But the absolute under this scenario would be the 10 stories. That doesn't necessarily mean that every spot on this site could be, because the CMX will have limitations within it.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that we really formally discussed in our comprehensive plan, right? That we're mixing the kind of scale and styles of the need as we step.
Right.
So sounds like you are thinking about that. Before I go on any other questions, are there any other questions? I appreciate the potential of what this could be for that particular area of Garner. We do have a lot that's changing, and definitely a place that allows for a more walkable community, and access point could be really a great node. I do echo Mr. Carson's statement that there are a lot of great things in this, and you're showing us a lot of great things. And I hope that we are able to kind of follow through that as we go through our review, if this goes through and town council reviews it and it goes through, to meet the needs of our community. I think one thing I would like to suggest as we start to incorporate more public art, in your conditions, you mentioned a public art installation. I would suggest that because of the size of the site and the conditions of A, B, and C, that there's probably more than one public art opportunity installation throughout the entire site. So, as you work through this, I would, the opportunity to really engage the entire site in many ways would be very, very, I think, opportunistic.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment regarding, well, first, overall, I do like the plan for this site. I would hope, without there being a master plan, that what it turns out to be is similar to what is being presented and to us today. One of the questions from the public meeting was about greenways. And so someone had asked, will there be any public greenways? And the answer was there are no greenways identified for the site, that you're likely to build multi-use paths. So it's, just would like you guys to really consider to include greenway paths as they do, here it says eventually, there's a potential for it that would link to Auburn-Nightdale Road and then one day connect to the new greenway. I think a lot of the projects that we've been looking at recently are including these greenways, especially if they are close to an area of connectivity. So I'm going to look for that for the future. I think that's been a big part of a lot of the Garner planning, is how to connect throughout the town and then to greenways and other areas.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate the comment. I think in response to the question at the neighborhood meeting, there wasn't any planned public greenway on the town's comp plan.
Mm-hmm.
Our site, however, we've planned to put in trails, greenways. One of our conditions is this 10-foot multi-use path for any road that goes from Rock Quarry down to East Garner Road. So we call it maybe a spine road or, the main street, would have this 10-foot multi-use path, because the plan is to then connect to the multi-use path on Rock Quarry that then does go on to the news. So that's very top of mind for us, to have places for people to get out and connect, to be able to walk from one development to the next pocket park, to the next playground, and so on.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all right, seeing none. Or is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this change? Seeing none. That being said, does the commission have a recommendation for us to review?
I'll make a motion I'll move that the Planning Commission accept the consistency statement drafted herein as our own written recommendation regarding the consistency of the request with the town's adopted land use plans. Recommend approval of case ZZ 24006 to the town council.
I'll second that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boylan and Mr. Carson. We have a motion and a second, and if there's no other discussion, we are ready to vote.
That is the motion on the floor, and I will call the vote. Shane Banks,
Aye.
Mariah Bishop,
Aye.
Ralph Carson,
Aye.
Philip Jefferson,
Aye.
Gian Hodges. Aye. Ben Mills,
Aye.
Michael Boylan.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you so much. We have approved this motion and hope that this continues to be positive for the town as it goes to council to review eventually. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, we have 2 more items on our agenda. Our comprehensive plan implementation, ZTA 24001. Mr. Triesenberg.
Yes, good evening. Yes, this text amendment package is fairly large. It's actually not a lot of text change, but it covers a lot of topics within the comp plan as we try to move and adjust our ordinance rules to better promote the goals and ideas that are actually in the plan. My intent is not to go through everything tonight, but to give you just a little bit of an intro, kind of focusing on the changes largely in the kind of the R4, R8, R2 kinds of the zoning districts and the uses that are assigned with them. And then we'll pick up at our meeting in February with a little more discussion on kind of the other half or so of things. There are a couple of additional pieces that we are working on to try to add into this package, of some things that staff has been aware of that have been brought to our attention over the last few months. Since we have this package going through, they're not intended to be major items, but you will notice in your staff report for February that there will be some highlighted sections of the staff report where we have inserted some additional things for your consideration. So the presentation approach, this seemed to work a little better with council rather than trying to take you through the actual staff report, trying to give you a little more of a high level summary of things. So we've organized this whole package into kind of 7 purpose statements. So they generally align with those amendment considerations that are discussed on pages 2 and 3 of the staff report. Each purpose is kind of followed by a synopsis of the amendments here in the presentation. And of course, just a reminder that underlined text is proposed new text and struck through text is text to be removed. Just some high level kind of overall thoughts. The first being that the comprehensive plan calls out more housing form variability at smaller unit counts per structure than probably what is in the UDO currently. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple more slides, but there definitely is more definition and distinction in the comprehensive plan for various forms of single family and house scaled type residential products than there are for larger products. And so one of the things that we notice is that then our UDO doesn't necessarily reflect that level of distinction as much as it probably needs to. We have to keep in mind that there are other rules and factors that may play into where we define the different types of residential products. A good example of that is that in the building code now, there is a sharp delineation between types of residential structures that have 4 units or less and those that are more than 4 units. So that again is an example of why 4 units per structure, whether it's a quadplex or 4 townhomes side by side in a building, is an important distinction there from those townhomes that may have more than 4 in a row, or a rental building that has more than 4 dwelling units in it. So all of this again is kind of reflected in how we divide up the residential uses in the use table itself. An additional reminder that's a little more recent and fresh on our minds in the planning department was Session Law 2024-57, which was recently enacted. I say recently, relative, recently enacted by the North Carolina State Legislature. It prohibits us from creating new nonconformities in non-residential zones. So for purposes of our UDO, we are interpreting that as when you go to the use table, you'll see all of the R districts and the MFA districts under a heading, a grouping that says residential zones. Then when you move to NMX, CMX, the traditional business district, our industrial districts, those are under a grouped heading that says non-residential and mixed use. So it's those non-residential and mixed use districts where we have to be conscious of any text amendment. It's not just a rezoning, but any text amendment that would create nonconformities. We can't be passing those kind of changes. We also cannot, in any zone, reduce the number of permitted uses. There's some question about how you interpret number of uses. In talking with legal, we've taken the approach for now that's very literal. So when you're going down the list of uses in the table, if there were 20 uses permitted, we can't make an amendment that reduces that number to 19. It has to maintain, or any amendment has to increase the number of uses. And then finally, we cannot do anything in the form of a text amendment that reduces existing permitted densities. And we've also been talking about that maybe dwelling units per acre. That could also mean floor area, buildable area, things of that nature. So there's definitely, behind that session law was a very clear to us intent that if somebody has permission under their current zoning to do a certain amount of development, the town cannot rezone, change their UDO in any manner that would reduce the scope of what somebody could develop on their property beyond what they can, any less than what they could do today under the zoning they have, unless that owner gives you written permission and agreeance. So going to those 7 purpose kind of groupings, the first purpose was simply to incorporate non-voidable sections of our ordinance 2024-5286. If you go to the planning departments or to the UDO's webpage on our site, you'll see that ordinance. There were several things in that ordinance that we believe were in violation of that new session law. And the session law just basically said that if you had an ordinance, they didn't give you the ability to like break it apart and just say, okay, the parts that are in violation are invalid. It basically just says the whole thing's garbage, and you can't enforce that ordinance. So one of the things that we wanted to do was take all the pieces of that ordinance that were not in violation, or we don't believe are in violation of the session law, and get those readopted, so that we can continue to have those on the books. Because there were a lot of good things in that ordinance, even some things that some developers and applicants were waiting on, depending on. So we do want to get those back officially on the books. And so just in summary, this slide kind of goes over what those sections were. So what I will do is I will also get with staff to send you a PDF version of these slides, so that you can kind of go back and forth between the staff report and the slides and see exactly, what sections this is referring to. But that's a quick kind of just brief summary. Some changes to the nonconformity applicability matrix, some changes to the commercial highway overlay district, some things dealing with private ownership and maintenance of open space, our layout of streets and connectivity standards, some shared parking tweaks that we made, and then some design requirements in Article 10. So I'm going to move now to kind of the second purpose, but I want to preface this by coming back to the comprehensive plan and the level of detail that we have in how residential uses and residential forms are broken down. You'll see here that we have 10 different types of building forms just for residential. That's a lot. It's a lot compared to what we have in the plan for non-residential. So we have everything from accessory dwelling units. We have single family detached on a large lot. We have single family detached on a small lot. We have side-by-side duplex. We have duplexes on top of each other. Triplex vertically. Quadplexes vertically. Standalone courtyard cottages. Townhomes is where it starts to finally kind of settle into less distinction. It actually treats townhomes pretty much all the same. But again, I go back to the fact that the building code makes a very important distinction at 4 units or less, or 5 units or more. And that is something that kind of changed either while we were doing the comp plan or shortly thereafter. So I think that's largely why the comp plan didn't really talk about that much. And then apartments, condos, there's really no breaking down of those in any way. So again, the package wants to focus on kind of reflecting this very detailed breakdown of the types of housing that the plan envisions, and making some distinctions about where you allow certain types in one district versus another. So again, we talked about the residential building code. It now applies to 1 to 4 unit structures. So that includes single family detached. That would include paired houses. Paired houses, we wanted to introduce a new term to kind of make that a little easier to understand. It's basically a 2-unit townhouse structure. So you think about it, the units each have their own land, but it's just 2 of them in a building. That product was kind of first introduced into our local market area with the Auburn Village project out there on Auburn Nightdale Road. So they do have some of those there in that 55 plus community. House scaled multifamily. which we kind of are using as a umbrella term for the duplex, triplex, quadplex. So again, but up to 2,500 square foot footprint. So again, you're kind of encouraging the vertical, which is reflected in those breakdowns in the comp plan. You didn't see triplexes side by side or quadplexes side by side. They were stacked. That's controlled by limiting the footprint to 2,500 square feet. So you can have 2,500 square feet on the first floor and 25 on the second floor. That's fine, but you can't go bigger and make it bulkier. Same thing with multifamily, 2 to 4 unit dwellings per structure. Again, kind of getting back to, that's referring though to, there's another use. So even under the building code, it only depends on the number of units. So in our use table, we do have the multifamily over 2,500 square feet. That's still treated under the building code as a residential structure. And there's, when it comes to those residential structure classifications, we as the town cannot enforce architectural controls. They are exempt unless they volunteer them. So yes, we wanted to redefine, categorize townhomes, making it very clear in the ordinance that townhomes are constructed horizontally. They're platted separately, so that would include, again, the paired home concept. We want to make sure that the plexes, they can be constructed horizontally or vertically, both, but they're on a common lot. They don't have their own separate land with them. And house scale would no longer include townhomes with 3 or 4 units. We've tried to get house scaled to focus more on 2 units or less, or to be, if they do have 3 or 4, that they are the vertically stacked and not over that 2,500 square foot footprint. In the past, we've been treating house scaled as 3 and 4 unit townhome buildings, but if you've driven past a group of townhomes where there's 3 or 4 put together, I think most people would say that that's bigger than your typical house and has a different feel to it. So primarily we adjusted the use table and the definitions. Specifically in the comp plan, when it talks about townhouses, it mentions the fact that it doesn't envision townhouses ever having more than 6 in a building. To our knowledge, there's nothing that would restrict us from capping townhouses at 6. So as part of this package, we've chosen to bring that recommendation from the comp plan into the UDO. So our townhouse use would cap them at 6. You would not see buildings with 7 or 8 units. And we would be introducing the allowance of paired houses into our NMX district. Currently, for whatever reason, that wasn't possible, but neighborhood mixed use, again, the idea of neighborhood mixed use is to have it at a scale that reflects more like a neighborhood. So you have some non-residential uses that you bring into that zoning district, but it didn't make much sense to not allow paired houses, which are neighborhood scale, in that district. And so again, you see section 6.4.4 and the sections in Article 13. Those are kind of the additional standards and things, so there's some changes there as well. We focused on replacing all the old terminology with the new. So where we introduced the paired houses, or we made distinctions about the size of townhouses and how we group those, you'll see a lot of strike throughs and underlines, just making those simple changes and introducing that new terminology. I have 2 more purposes I want to cover tonight, and then we're going to call it good. I'll be happy to answer any questions though that you have. as you dig into this more over the next month. But purpose number 3 was to amend the use table to ensure the appropriate mix of residential and non-residential uses being permitted in each zoning district. And specifically, we focused on the updating of the R8 district, which we've had a lot of discussion about that district, particularly at the council, because we've been getting requests for the R8 zoning, but only ending up with densities that were between 2 and 3 units per acre. And the idea was that, okay, why are we asking for R8 and not doing R4, which would have been more appropriate for densities of 2 to 3 dwelling units per acre? And it's because folks wanted to narrow the lot size, the lot width. So we're proposing that we update the R8 district to allow for a full range of residential that's at the house scale. So you'll see some differences between R4 and R8, that there are some things, some types of housing that you can introduce in R8 that would not be allowed in R4. And they would be the things that would actually help you get to that higher density. We've also proposed to actually introduce a minimum that you have to be at least 4 units per acre. And if you can't achieve that, then you can't use the R8 district. So additionally, the R8 district, it talks about how it should be this kind of transition zone and kind of be a buffer or directly adjacent to something that's higher density. So there was I think it was kind of worded as more of a recommendation in the UDO when it talks about the R8 district. It's like it should be. We're proposing that we actually change that language to shall be and make it a requirement. That it be within a 1/4 mile walking distance of some other district that has more activity going on. Establish that minimum density at 4 dwelling units per acre, as I noted before. And then you see in sections 5.6 of all the different types, there's adjustments to the graphics and some of those additional standards, but it all kind of goes back to this concept of trying to promote specific uses in specific districts better than it has. So we've revised, as I said, the uses for the R8 district. We're keeping the permitted residential uses primarily house scale, allowing small groupings of live-work units, which are similar to townhouses, but you can have a non-residential use on the first floor. Allowing upper story residential to try to encourage some more of that vertical stacking and get that density higher. And then allowing for certain non-residential uses with a special use permit. So not necessarily allowing them just by right, but where somebody comes and brings a good R8 package proposal, saying, okay, we'd like to have some of these non-residential uses that could be if it fits for that particular proposal. So that would include other office, daycare centers, small-scale personal professional services, and artisan shops. And artisan shops are a new category that we're also introducing. So when you look at the use table, and I just kind of tried to chop it down to the R districts and the uses, you'll see how the actual categories have changed a little bit from what they were before. And you'll see that now each district, specifically, it's almost like as you step up the density, you add another type of residential that's allowed. So each district is really distinct now in what it will permit, and it tries to reinforce some of the decisions that we've been making over the last few years and trying to codify and let the developers know that, you know what, if you want to do townhouses now, if it's more than a paired house, you've got to do the R8 district. We're not going to allow townhouses in the R4. So hopefully that makes sense. I did include just in this slide where you can see where we're introducing that live work use as well. That's artisan shops and live work units were two uses that we're proposing to be introduced. Live work units, again, specifically because they're talked about in the comp plan, but we just they didn't really exist in the UDO. But again, introducing those in the R8. They're similar in style and how they look as a townhome. So many of the things that you'll see where townhomes are allowed, you'll see kind of a corresponding allowance for live work units that are the same kind of type and count. Yeah, so purpose 5, again, adding that appropriate live work unit and establishing ancillary non-residential uses. Things that are more intense than home occupations in a live work unit, but things that are still restricted that fit that house scale. So you'll see that as you go down the use table, you'll see some things plugged in that are permissible in a live work unit, but are beyond what somebody could do just in their single family residence. So when we introduce that live work unit, again, we're focusing on limiting the size of the non-residential space, limiting the number of employees, controlling access and building orientation to the street, and keeping the parking in the rear or on street, limiting still some of the hours of operation and limiting outdoor activities. So again, keeping an idea of this is still residential character. We want to allow for a little more intense, kind of that studio where people can come and shop, but it's not all hours. You don't have a ton of employees. You're still keeping it kind of low key. So next steps would be to continue the case tonight until the regular February meeting, where we will go over the purpose groupings 4, 6, and 7. And at the end of that, we hope that the Planning Commission will feel comfortable about making a finding of plan consistency and recommendation to either approve or deny, and then we'll get it back to the Town Council and hopefully get a version of this package on the books. So again, we will send this out. I'll send out actually I hid some slides for the parts that we weren't going over tonight, but I'll send you the whole package of the slides, and so you can dig into it over the next month. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. You won't get a response for the next 2 weeks while I'm out, but do ponder it, and and feel free to send me. Have some questions waiting for me. Hopefully, I will be just all invigorated and ready to knock out some responses when I get back. But that's all I have for you tonight on this. Unless you have some questions right now, I'll be happy to answer.
Mr. Carson.
The paired houses definition, did that come out of the session law, or was that Garner initiated? Like, is that a new?
That's initiated by us and seems to be kind of an industry standard that's emerged, just to give it a little bit of better better definition, I guess. A lot of people, when they think of townhouses, they're not thinking of just 2 units side by side, even though that's really what they are. So it's just a way to talk about them that seems to be consistent with folks that are out there in the real estate industry. and not hopefully confuse
So
the matter.
Did the session law didn't grandfather in any of Garner's sections? So if we had 20 permittable uses, it didn't allow that to be grandfathered in, like you can't reduce it anymore now?
Yeah, so you're basically, when that law went into effect, your ordinance at that time kind of became the baseline. They actually made it retroactive a little bit, so there was a date. That's why some of the ordinances that we had just adopted got caught up in it. But yeah, it's kind of like it set a baseline, and now everything that you do from there forward has to be judged against that baseline.
Okay, thank you.
So is it we have to maintain the number, or they have to be the exact same items?
Unclear. As I mentioned, as of right now, we're just treating it as the number. However, that being said, if this question has come up in some of our mixed use districts, could you eliminate the residential and just trade out other non-residential? Then you're going to be running afoul more than likely of the reduction in density. Because now all of a sudden you would go from being allowed to do residential to not being able to do any. And so that would seem to run afoul of reducing the density.
Unless we are increasing the density with something else.
Right.
Keeping it. Interesting. Well, I see. I won't say anything else. Any other questions? Mr. Riesenberg? So that being said, we need a motion to consider to continue this case to our February meeting. Do we have a motion from the commission to do so?
I'll make that motion to continue.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to continue the case to the February 9th Planning Commission meeting. I'll call the vote. Shane Banks.
Aye.
Mariah Bishop.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Aye.
Philip Jefferson.
Aye.
Jehan Hodges.
Aye.
Ben Mills.
Aye.
Michael Voyland.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes. The motion to continue passes.
Thank you so much. We have just a couple more things on our agenda. Our transportation elements. Mr. Griffey.
And I'm back with something pretty exciting,
Bookends.
hopefully. And hopefully it'll be pretty brief. Yes, just briefly to talk about the Comprehensive Transportation Plan update, the element update. So per the contract with Bolton and Mank, we are seeking to create 3 committees, again, as established within that contract. It's going to be the technical committee, which is comprised of various staff from different organizations. It's going to be NCDOT, Campo, as well as Town of Garner staff and a couple of other just government entities help guiding and gathering that data aggregation and whatnot. One other committee is going to be the policy committee. So that's going to be comprised of all of Planning Commission as well as the members of Town Council. Lastly, and what this item is specifically talking upon is going to be the advisory committee. So the advisory committee helps guide and create visions, goals, things of that nature. A little bit more on the visionary side as compared to the technical side that the staff is essentially going to present and create that document. That committee, the advisory committee, is going to be comprised of a variety of individuals from the community, 2 of which are going to be coming from the Planning Commission. So when me, Thomas, and Philip had a conversation late last week, kind of shed light a little bit on what we are seeking. And again, it's 2 members from the Planning Commission. So I believe that information was disseminated last week. Can certainly go into specifics a little bit, provide more context. But again, we're seeking 2 members, from the Planning Commission to be a part of that full-fledged advisory committee. They will be meeting 3 times at key points throughout through the spring and the summer. Those dates have been identified, the first being February 12th. The second meeting, let me refer to this, I believe it's April 9th, but just to confirm, yes, April 9th, and then the last one would occur on June 11th. So those are the 3 set dates that we're anticipating on the advisory committee meeting. Jeff, I did get posed a question earlier, not to put you on the hot mic, but when we had our project management team meeting earlier this afternoon, I believe I caught wind of we're looking at the evening or after work session. Okay, perfect. So I did get posed that question earlier. So we're envisioning the advisory committee meeting sometime after working hours. Again, on the 12th of this month, or excuse me, next month, April 9th, and then June 11th, for what that's worth.
Second Thursday.
There we go. So I didn't receive any responses via email, so I do not know. Excuse me?
You did? Well, I mean, I thought you must have. They're blocking my email or something.
No,
Crickets.
I know yours keeps coming back to me for some reason.
I think I saw yours go out to all the members, but I never got anything. I don't believe I received anything specific. Does that mean you're interested?
2 sets of emails back, but Mr. Mills did provide his name as an interest. And so, is there anyone else no one else provided the feedback?
Interested.
Oh, okay. So, so that being the case, if I'm not needed, then we have 2 advisory members. If you need me, I can always be a backup.
Yeah, I'm happy to step down too if anyone else has any interest.
Okay. I think we have our 2 members for our advisory board.
No motion needs to be introduced, right? Just appointment.
If there's just consensus, we can take that.
All right. We'll have Ben Mills and Mariah Bishop appointed to the advisory committee.
So we are taking the staff's recommended list of folks to the council on the 20th in hopes that they will endorse the folks that we have put forward. But yeah, it's fairly light commitment, 3 meetings. And as Julian said, it's really about making sure that we're staying on track. We're not really getting off the rails with anything. And that we're addressing in the plan the questions and the issues that are important to Garner. And so we've got a good cross section of folks. For that committee, it'll include some folks like from the school system, some of the nonprofit agencies who maybe do lots of deliveries, just different bicycle advocates, transit advocates, people that we know, just making sure that we're covering kind of all the bases at a high level. So thank you to the 2 of you for volunteering.
Appreciate that very much. For some reason, I'm checking my email. Your email, you all blocked me somehow. Both of you.
What happened? Did it get kicked out?
I actually saw that Mr. Rail's email comes back, but now also yours. So I'm not really sure. Maybe we need to
We'll have to check with IT.
It wasn't by accident.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Never.
You get me on this conversation and then you block my email. Let me talk to counsel. Yeah, so I'm sorry that didn't go through. I wondered why I didn't hear anything back. Okay.
Gotcha. And again, just to reiterate, y'all are being voluntold to be part of the policy committee, so there will be your review collectively along with town council at various points as well. Those dates have been identified. If y'all want to jot them down, you're more than welcome to do so. But those dates have been identified as the following, being April 28th, June 30th, and August 25th.
And those are the dates of the regular council work sessions, which is the last Tuesday of the month. I think last time with the comprehensive plan, we actually met ahead of time. So their meetings normally start at 6 for the work session, and I think we started those at 4. So we'll probably follow a similar pattern, I would guess. So if you can massage your work schedules or schedules as needed, please try. But if you can't, we understand. They will be recorded. So,
What were those dates again?
Yes. So for the policy committee, that will be April 28th, June 30th, and August 25th.
All right. If anything else on that, thank you so much, Mr. Griffey, for that.
Short and sweet. I love it. Perfect.
Mr. Triesenberg,
Yes.
our planning director.
Real briefly, I think some of you have probably heard that this gentleman next to me is leaving us and going to the town of Apex. He's gonna stretch his wings and see what's going on in other parts of the county. But then I have the honor of introducing a new employee as well, and you've heard her helping out with the duties tonight, and that's Miss Jemiah Ryans. She will be the new board secretary going forward. So she's joining us as the planner 1 in Aaron's team. So hopefully we will miss Thomas. Hopefully
She was going to be secretary anyway, though.
Yes, she was going to be secretary anyway. That's true. But hopefully it won't be too long before we are able to backfill his position. But yeah, this will be his last week this week. In terms of council actions on some other items, hasn't been a whole lot of action over the holidays. Back on November 18th, there were a couple of annexations that were approved by the town council, and the Jurgen Road Apartments project went through. Nothing on the December 2nd agenda, and then December 16th, the Arden subdivision was approved. Neither of those development approvals were unanimous, but they did get approved. And then, of course, we had a little bit of a backlog of things that came to you tonight. We try to keep things a little more spread out, but this one was just kind of unavoidable. But that's all I have.
Thank you so much. You will be very missed. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done and how you have stepped up the town of Garner. So Apex is getting, I think, a very good representation. And you just remember to make them make it known that you came from Garner.
Yes, no, Garner trained me
trained
well. I learned
For their
everything
benefit.
here, so yeah. So I'm very grateful for that. My time here, the leadership of Jeff and Aaron, and thank you to all of you for being great communicators and great advocates for the town. And it's been good from staff to work with all of you.
And we wish you well.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best.
Any commission statements, comments, updates? None? Seeing none? Before anybody says anything, I will.
That's good.